Okay. Okay. Let's just put this comment thing back up. Hello. Oh god, we're back in this game again. But this time, the wedding DLC is finally out. My god. Finally! Oh god. I'm wondering if I should like play the last part first and then get into the wedding DLC because it did not record properly last time. I'm not sure. Should I? Maybe it's a good idea to actually do that, you know? Oh, hello Fast Guy. How was your week? Do you want me to like, start off from the beginning of the last chapter? Cause, it didn't record properly previously. I might do that actually. Wait, let me just lower the volume, it's super loud for me. Oof, okay. Let's just restart. Go back to the previous chapter, cause, let's just say it didn't record properly. I've already said this like 3 times. Yes! Well, let's go back! Back. Yes, we're going way back. Let's hope I'm able to speedrun this. I think this is the first game I watched history. Ah! Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes sense, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think the previous one was recorded properly too, so like, I think I might redo this part and then go into the wedding DLC. If that doesn't work, if I run out of time, maybe I'll do another stream where I like do the wedding stuff. So yeah. Let's go back. Okay, we'll skip this part. Your driver didn't. But no matter how old you got, how far you run, blah blah blah, and boom. The car rumbled down the highway. You had started to zone. Tell me if there's any problem with the noise or with the audio or with the video, the stream. I mean, is it lagging? Is it lagging like the last time? The car rumbled down the highway. You had started to zone out when a truck in the left lane loudly zoomed past. Your driver didn't remark on it. Just like anything else in this trip, you went back to staring out the window, letting the scenery pass you by. Man, that's still a bit loud. Hold up. I'm gonna go lower this. Jeez. Okay, that's good enough. You did appreciate the spacious backseat of your... Oh god, this is still loud. Why is it so loud for me? Okay. Of your ride. You hadn't known exactly when you would be coming in, so you had decided to use this ride app rather than ask your mums to pick you up. Your week was good, how was mine? I think it was pretty fine until I found out that one of my assignments is going to be due like the week after, which is not a lot of time, considering that it's research based. Everything looks fine to you? Okay, that's good. But yeah. I don't know if I might have to like not make thumbnails for this week for next week cuz I'm just kind of behind on schoolwork in terms of schoolwork and stuff. So yeah, I might like not do thumbnail work for next week, which is kind of sad, but like gotta do what I gotta do. I'll try and make a quick one though. It had turned out to be a convenient choice. You looked forward to surprising your parents at the door. You smiled at the thought of their faces lighting up. Luckily, this hadn't been that big of a trip for you. You lived close enough that the travel hadn't turned into a big production. However, that didn't make the occasion mundane. For once, your mums had decided to have a modest celebration dinner for their anniversary. Nice. Unlike when you were growing up, and they had preferred not to make a big deal out of it, this year they were comfortable having a party. As time went on, they had found being the center of attention easier to handle. You were happy to see it. With this going on, there was no way that either you or Liz would miss your mum's anniversary. Don't worry about it, personal life always comes first. Yeah, that's true. Both of you made plans to come back home for it. You didn't hear from Liz about her exact schedule, but you hadn't shared yours either. It reminded you of when you were kids, and both knew to show up for dinner, but didn't keep each other in the loop for each other's pre-dinner plans. This was the same concept after all. I see some sibling stuff. Some things will never change between me and Liz. Hypothetical me and Liz. Some things stayed the same, and yet it was definitely different from when you would see your sister every day, and knew sort of what she was doing anyways from osmosis. Today you had no idea. Things were always changing. You mused on how at times it was hard to believe you didn't live with your parents anymore, and yet you also couldn't imagine going back and living as a kid under their rules. The rest of the drive flew by. Your silent driver provided a smooth ride. No sharp turns or hard stops jostled you out of your own head. Your thoughts turned from introspective to observant. The landscape passing by became more and more familiar. You frequently recognized the landmarks that dotted the area. A grin came to your face as you passed the now entering sign for Sunset Bird. Excitement built within you. You were really here. You were doing this. Your driver turned off on a street, and you realized that their map program was taking you to the way home that Ma preferred. You usually would have used the other side of the street to pass by the beach. In no time at all, the car had gone through the whole town and parked in front of your mum's condo. The car slowed to a stop and parked. With the buzz of the highway gone, you realized that you could hear the familiar sound of waves. The air smelled like salt, and a rush of childhood memories flooded back. You started to gather your things and humming to yourself once more about how happy your mums would be to see you. After that, you notify everyone else that you've made this trip safely. You pulled over your suitcase from the other seat and yanked at your bag from down near your feet. Tap tap. It's this scene. You were startled at the sudden sound of tapping on glass. It caused you to pause. Did you really hear what you thought you did? You weren't entirely sure because you soon heard something else. The window on the opposite side of the car rolling down. It confused you until you put it together that despite the driver's silence, you weren't actually alone in this car. The driver must have pressed the button. Someone had to be there. You turned your head to face the now open window. Yeah, there he was, leaning his arms across the window, your beloved Cove Holden. Lol. He beamed at you with one of his precious open smiles. Hey, Airi. What a surprise this is. I didn't expect you to see you in this neighborhood. He was joking, of course. Seeing your expression, he decided to push it further. Yes, why are you staring at me like this, huh? It's not like I've been waiting for you What? It's not like I've been waiting for you out here all morning or anything. Ah, frick, I forgot about this. Yes, I would have been. The Cove chuckled at your reaction and met your eyes with a gentle expression. He then gripped the top of the car door and pushed half of his torso through the opening. That was enough to make the driver break their silence with a sharp, "Hey!" Cove did not seem to notice and continued climbing through the window. He pushed one hand down into the middle seat to prop his dangly body up. Man, some things never change, huh? You always climbing through windows and all that. He used his other hand to caress your cheek as he leaned in as close as he could. I miss you. Let's go with this. Your position didn't quite allow for you to hold his hand, but you enjoyed the touch all the same. Meanwhile, you noticed that Cove had started to shake. His balancing act was becoming highly unstable, indeed. You saw his arm wobble and wondered if he had an accidental head dive onto your bag. Let's go with this. Cove's smile turned awkward as his arm started to bend lower, causing his body to slide downwards with it. He turned his head to the driver. Sorry, I'm always causing trouble in the neighborhood. Cove shifted around some more and scrounged back the way he came. After he had successfully pushed off the window and landed on the pavement with a thump, you opened your car door. You threaded your arms through the various straps of your bag and climbed out. Cove took a few long strides around the back of the car and quickly met you on your side. Cove stood out in front of you, and it struck you that the two of you were back in Sunset Bird, reunited once again on the street. Nice to meet you again, for the third time, because I had technical difficulties the last time. Yes, let's go with this one. He gave you a wide wave paired with a goofy grin. You were really ecstatic to be around him again, and absolutely thrilled that it was here in this town where you were together. Nice. Cove's schedule had let him come up earlier than you. He only arrived the evening before, however, and secured the hotel room. Even though you didn't live far from each other, and still managed to see Cove often, it felt like it had been way too long since your last meeting. But what? Oh! You idly shifted your luggage, and then it struck you that you were short one. You got out in such a hurry, it was left behind. You reached back into the car to pull it out. Cove stood aside as you made a dash for the door. You shouldered the small bag and felt relieved that you would be able to brush your teeth tonight. Man, I was gonna lose my toiletries there, lol. Got everything this time? You stood up straight, everything truly gathered up and out of the car. You gave the back seat one last glance, and then you nodded. Cove shut the door after you had moved out of the way. The two of you stepped off the street to give the driver some room. Cove waved. Sorry again! The driver said nothing and drove off. With the road clear, you let your gaze drift across the neighborhood that you had known forever. It was such a small place to spend so many days. You were flooded with memories of going up and down the street during every stage of your life. Being a little kid, following your big sister to the playground, becoming a teen and staying out later, and growing into an adult who left their parents' house behind to be independent. Actually, maybe moving out of your parents' house is a bad idea in this day and age, because houses are pretty expensive now. Getting rent is expensive, and it's generally much cheaper to stay with your parents, although it's a bit annoying. It is cheaper though. You could feel the summer skin. Oh, what? You can feel the summer sun on your skin from all the times you headed out to the beach. You saw the same surroundings that you as a young adult did when leaving home. It was hard to quantify the amount of history you had here. And now you are back. Despite taking in the neighborhood again, you never lost awareness of Cove's presence. From the corner of your eye, seeing him there was a very familiar sight as well. So many of your memories included him. Ah yes, childhood friends to lovers. Yes, my favorite trope. JK, it's not really my favorite trope. It's like a trope that I'm like meh with. It's a trope that can be interesting when done right. I guess. I call it a safe trope. Your mind drifted from the neighborhood itself to the person who used to live there. You couldn't help the feeling of nostalgia. You still remembered his face, his voice, the scar on his arm from days long gone. He had changed so much since you had first met him. Yet even with those changes, he was always recognizable. Wait, what body type did I give him? He was familiar like the sky was, in the way you knew the sea. Every day they may appear different, but they were... but there's still an how do I pronounce this? Inextricable part of life. Good lord, English. It was the world with the help from Mr. Holden and his ill-thought $20 bill that brought you together to begin with, but the two of you had chosen each other. Yes, if it wasn't the $20 bill. You had never let your interactions fade. You had decided to nurture your relationship into what it was. And you would continue to keep Cove close in all the rest of your adult years. Yay. Cove was the partner you wanted for life, and you couldn't be more grateful to call him your boyfriend. Significant. I prefer to use the term significant other because it sounds way more subtle compared to boyfriend or I prefer to call them partner or significant other. It's just subtle that way. Boyfriend is so obvious for some reason. Boyfriend, girlfriend, it's so out there. It would be impossible to imagine life without him. Cove noticed you staring Cove noticed you staring at him after a while and smiled with his eyebrows rising in curiosity. He was very transparent with his question if there was something you wanted to say. You shook your head and returned to him with a soft expression. You'd let yourself get carried away in a tide of memories, and now it was time to focus on the present. Ready to go see my mum's? Cove nodded and then pointed at all of your luggage bundled around your legs. Can I help with any of that? Yeah, go ahead. You gratefully passed him a bag. It was a lot easier to balance everything with that out of the way. He used both of his hands to take hold of the one piece of luggage and stood tall, pleased to be able to provide his assistance. The bag situation resolved, the two of you strolled over to the Briggs residence door. You started to pat your pockets instinctively, only to realize that you no longer carried the key to the house. Your eyes scanned the entryway, a little lost, only to spy the doorbell. Man, wait, I gave back keys to my parents? Man, that kinda sucks. The thought of having to ring it felt super weird. As you pressed the inconveniently placed button on the side wall, you remembered that no matter how much this place would always be a home to you, it wasn't where you lived. Being back here was like putting on a uniform after you quit the store where it came from. It had remained the same, but your circumstances had changed. Cove shifted on his feet awkwardly, obviously also thrown about you being stuck out here, keyless. Haha. You heard muffled voices and shuffling around from inside. Your heartbeat sped up in anticipation. The door swung opened, and there was your mum's smiling face. She immediately brightened at seeing you standing there. Well, it's Mum! Mother! Good to see you again. Well. Mum twisted her back. Mum twisted her head. Man, imagine twisting your back. That's actually kind of painful. That sounds painful. Mum twisted her head back and gave a shout from the hall. Lonnie, guess who's here? There were more distant noises, no doubt. Ma getting up from wherever she wanted to come see. Where she was to come see. Her high-spirited words rang out clearly. I hope it's one of my children. Mum snickered, still holding the door only half open to hide you for a little longer. Cove flushed as if suddenly realizing that he was going to be present for your mum's enthusiastic welcoming of you. You smiled to reassure him that he wasn't intruding. Nah, you're really not, mate. At this point, I think the mums would consider you as an honorary child of theirs. Let me have another sip of water. Man, I'm drinking a lot of water. Oh yeah. I forgot to tell you. I don't know if you know this, but getting my model, I made like a new version of this model, my model. I mean, this is, and it was already like cut up to be ready to be rigged onto Live 2D. This one, the one I'm using right now, it's like the old version. It's also been cut up, ready to be used for Live 2D, but like turns out I cut some parts incorrectly and all that, so I made a new one and like did it and decide and try to make less mistakes, like the least amount of mistakes as much as possible. And yeah, it's getting rigged by Parsley Risotto, I think that's their name. Yeah. Think you might have saw some of this stuff on Twitter. If that is, if you follow my Twitter, lol. But yeah, I might do a re-debut when that's out or something. Maybe. Yeah, that might be a good idea. Ma finally reached the door and peered over Mum's shoulder. It is! Hello, Airi. She gave you a once-over, patting the tops of your shoulders and moving down the sides of your arms before she nodded in satisfaction that you were in one piece.
How sweet.
Maybe I should show you the progress right now. This is wonderful. This is a wonderful surprise. Ma inclined her head next to Kovnik's, not leaving him out either. Hello, sweetie. You're looking forward to it? Oh, that's good, that's good. Might do a re-debut because I didn't debut properly. I just literally streamed and I just made a stream room and said debut stream and just played a game. Lol. That means I have to organize stuff, which is even more worrying because I don't really know what to add in debut streams. I know the basics. You count as one of my kids at this point anyways. I have doubled the surprise today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You snorted at your mum's greetings. They never changed. Yes, never changed, mums. Cove bashfully waved at them. He hadn't relaxed fully, but he had settled down at their welcome. Well, don't just stand there. Come on in. Your mum moved aside and held the door open for you, gesturing for you to enter. You stepped into the living room. It was comfortable and cool. Cove was a half step behind you, his eyes on a new painting your mums must have added since the last time you were here. I wonder what are these? Are these cookies or something? Actually, they kind of look like bread. I thought they were mushrooms. Mushroom bread. Things were mostly the same, but there were more decorations since you had seen the house last. Yeah, you can tell. Mum may have gotten the urge for some interior designing again. It struck you how odd it was to be the guest, only observing the choices for the living space here, rather than a full-time occupant. Ma came up in front of you, excitement in her eyes. I'm so glad you're here. You know, your mum and I would have been happy to pick you up, but you're self-sufficient and responsible. That's okay. What matters is that you arrived safely. Mum appeared at her side with a nod. Welcome back, kiddos. You appreciated that your parents respected you as an adult, even if Mum still called you kiddo. You figured long ago that you'd always be her kiddo, no matter how grown you became. It was part of the whole parent-child deal with her. Yes, hug. It's been too long. You took another step forward and pulled Mum and Ma into a great big hug, squeezing them tight. Their arms wrapped around you in return, and you could feel their love for you in their embrace. Yep. It's always nice when I'm able to come by. Your mum's giggled, pleased. And I hope you've both been doing well. Is everything set up for your anniversary dinner?
No problem.
We're happy to help if there's something we can do. We've been plenty fine. It's been a little quiet, but that's not a bad thing. Mum placed her arm around Ma's shoulder and gave her a side hug. Don't worry about the party. Don't worry about the party. We're just planning to eat at the Cypress. Nothing fancy, which is kind of a funny thing to say about a pretty fancy country club. The biggest issue has just been making sure everyone could make it for the day. Speaking of which, Liz will be arriving tonight. We're planning on picking her up later. I guess Liz isn't as grown up as Airi. Mum snickered at her own joke, and Ma lightly elbowed her with a barely hidden grin. Shush! As I was saying, we could drop you off wherever you're staying if you don't mind waiting for that. I'm sorry, there's not a lot of space for you in the house. It's gone crowded in those old rooms since you and Liz moved out. I don't know where all the stuff keeps coming from. Sure you don't, Pamela. That's okay. Cove already has a hotel room, and I'm gonna be staying in anyway. Cove sent you some pictures of the place when you arrived. Stylish and roomy. Seems very nice. Uh, 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 eeny, meeny, oh, missed. He claimed that the bed was comfortable, so you had high hopes about that, although mostly you were looking forward to having him next to you as you slept once again. Your mum smiled, relieved. Kara's already here, isn't she? She directed her question at Cove. He bobbed his head a bit to go along with his reply. Yeah, I heard she made it. She's gonna be staying with Dad while she's in town. Have you gone over and said hello yet? Cove chuckled self-consciously, and this time he shook his head. You raised an eyebrow since you had figured he would have taken the chance while waiting for you. Not yet. I should go do that now. I just wanted Airi to be there too. He caught you with an adoring smile. Mom laughed at that, no doubt thinking that Cove was sweet but ridiculous. Yes, tad bit clingy. I think I might try to finish it in one stream, which means I'll have to which means I'll have to try speed run this. At least I hope I can speed run this. It's nice to know your priorities. Yeah. Cove awkwardly rubbed his arm and shifted on his feet, looking all too much like he did as a kid. Airi, do you want to go over to my house now? That's a good idea. We won't be leaving until late evening. You heard, Ma. Let's go see your parents. Cove perked back up, excited once more. We'll keep an eye on your things while you're out. There's no reason to be carrying all that around. You set down your bags in the living room, tucked in a corner where they wouldn't be in the way. Cove helped. Your mums waved the two of you off as you walked back to the entranceway. Pardon. Thanks. See you soon. You waved back and opened the front door for Cove. With that, you were on your way to see Cove's family next. This trip put a little special pep in Cove's steps as you crossed the street to his dad's house together. His spirits were equally high. Doing this, you felt like a teen again. You had known Cove's parents for a long time now, when it came to what you called his dad. Yeah, Mr. Holden. At this point, you couldn't imagine calling him anything else. Despite it being formal, it rolled off your tongue naturally. For his mum, yeah, just Kyra. She always preferred that even when you were still just a kid. Honestly, you couldn't imagine calling her anything else. Cove hopped up to the front door and didn't bother knocking. He twisted the door and it swung open. With a grin, Cove gave you a gratified thumbs up. You shook your head in disapproval, but you both knew that you hypocritically supported his behavior. Your dad is lucky that we aren't criminals. He brushed your comment aside and went right into his old home. Mr. Holden was there, standing in his kitchen, babysitting a pan on the stove. You know, I kind of want to speed through this, like just scroll past the stuff. His head turned around at the sound of footsteps, and he brightened instantly at the sight of you both. Cove matched his enthusiasm instantly. If there was anyone else, you would have thought he was lighting up in childlike joy over seeing his dad again. But since you knew that Cove was actually like as a kid, you were aware that this level of happiness with Mr. Holden was definitely not equivalent to any childhood feeling of his. Dad! Cove! Oh god. Mr. Holden graciously pushed what he was cooking to a different burner and flipped off the heat. He rushed over to you both. Cove flew forward and met him halfway in a hug. Cove squished his eyes shut and held his dad in a tight hug. Mr. Holden soothingly rubbed his son's back. This more of an adult Cove. Oh wait, the more of an adult Cove became, the more he turned into a big daddy's boy. It seemed. I missed you. I missed you too. It was sweet and teasing aside. It was wonderful to see them at this place in their relationship after years of struggling to connect. When the hug broke, Mr. Holden hooked an arm around his son's neck. He let out a deep laugh. I still can't believe you outgrew me. Just wondering, am I speaking too fast? I really thought I had that. What? I really thought I had that on him after he graduated from high school, but then he had to keep growing. Chuckling, he shook his fist and mocked. What? Chuckling, he shook his fist and mock anger. Cove ducked his head and laughed in kind. Sorry, Dad. Cove's cheeks turned pink, and he averted his eyes. He was becoming bashful, so he knew he had more he wanted to say. Cove softly added, "But I was raised pretty well." His dad's expression instantly crumbled with emotion. He sniffled. Cove put an arm around him too and tugged him into a side hug. Aww. Bonding moment. You observed their little reunion fondly, happy to let them enjoy their moment. They were a perfect pair of sentimentality. Mr. Holden eventually turned his attention to you. Hi, Airi. So great to see you. He pulled away from Cove and approached you with a little wave. He was back to his cheery self. Yeah. Yeah. Excited, the words burst from you like a firecracker. You hopped forward with a big wave, and his head tilted back, roaring with happy laughter. No, the pace is fine for a text-based game. Okay. Okay. So I'm not speaking too fast. That's good. He missed having you around. Nodding, you could feel a warm blush rising on your face. It felt good being back home. I can imagine that. Mr. Holden cleared his throat, pulling attention to himself. He crossed his arms. But before we get too carried away, it's not a real reunion yet. Kara's still at the guest suite, and I'll go get her. He eagerly bolted down the hall, and you could hear every step he took. It ended with a distinct knock. Kyra, they're here! It was only seconds before there was the sound of a door being yanked open. The pounding of feet hitting the wooden floor grew even louder this time. Hey, Kyra! My baby! My baby! Next to you, Cove let out a nervous laugh. His parents entered the living room, and Kyra stretched her arms out wide when she spotted you both. Cove went to her easily. Yeah, I went for the hug. She pulled you into her she pulled you tightly She pulled you tightly into her arms with Cove. You were squished but felt every bit of love Kyra held in her heart for you both. Cove wrapped his free arm around her too. He rested his head on top of hers and let out a happy laugh. After a moment, Kyra let go and pulled back to get a better look at your faces. She surveyed every inch of them and appeared satisfied. You're both looking well. You're both looking well. That's wonderful. And just what I like to see. Thanks. And hi, Mum. Thank you. She chuckled and took one last look over Cove. She poked a few stray hairs on his head until he lightly moved her hand away. Really, I'm so happy that you're here. So, what's new? How have you both been? Kara gave a nod for Mr. Holden to go first. Cheerfully, he waved a hand. Oh, same old, same old. Still got the shop, still got my friends and family, of course, and still the most exciting thing around here is seeing who'll rent that one free condo. Incredible! I always knew you were such a snore. They snickered, and you couldn't help but peek at Cove. He rolled his eyes dramatically, drawing out a few giggles from you, but the whole time there was still a happy smile fixed on his face. Well, for me, things have been good. I've gotten a lot of interesting assignments lately. Oh, recently I went to Seattle and Kara twirled a strand of her hair shyly, and her mouth curved into a grin. Whatever she was thinking about, it made her happy. Things have still been going on with that guy from work, but it's a little early to bring him all the way out to California to meet the family. Oh yeah. Cove's parents are divorced. Man, if only my parents' relationship got better after that divorce. Oh well. Some divorces, some some parents' relationships get better after a divorce, and some just become stagnant and are just bad in general. Really depends on the person, I guess. Uh, Cove crossed his arms. He and his dad nodded. It was clear she appreciated the acceptance from her two boys. Yes, that's great. Kyra perked up at your reaction. She was clearly grateful for your approval as well. So that's us. Do you two have plans for your first day back? The only thing I have to do is pick up Liz later tonight before we head back to our hotel room. Great. He suddenly looked over his shoulder, his eyebrows pushed together. I'm glad you're here, but I just remembered I was in the middle of cooking something. Only a small cackle escaped from you, while you fought off the giant grin taking over your face. Meanwhile, Cove erupted into laughter that had his dad shaking his head. That's fine, Dad. Go salvage what you can. I think it'd be nice to explore the old neighborhood for a while. Anyway, since we've got the time. Cove directed the last part to you as he spoke, hoping that you'd want to go with him. You nodded automatically. You're already looking forward to it. That's a perfect idea. I think so too. You should go enjoy the day. I'll hang back here so I won't be a third wheel, and someone's got to keep an eye on Cliff before he catches the whole kitchen on fire. Mom, you're not a third wheel. I think I think the dad is the third wheel here. I think I think Cliff is the third wheel. Pretty sure Kyra is in a relationship with someone else, while Cove is in a relationship with the main character, whoever that could be. Cove stiffly stuck his arms against his sides like a little child. A small smirk tugged at Kyra's mouth. She winked. You know what I mean. Have a good walk. I'll see you both later. Cheerfully, Mr. Holden waved before going back to his cooking. Cove smiled warmly. Okay, bye. Bye, we'll see you soon. Cove trailed behind you as you walked into the welcoming summer sun. He stopped closing his eyes to stretch his mouth in the warm rays. Satisfied, Cove turned to you and carefully took your hand in his. The heat of that was better and more comforting than any ray of sunlight that could shine on you today. Stepping closer, you squeezed his hand. Your mouth curved into a playful smile. Let's get out of here. Yes, let's skedaddle. Cove hummed in agreement while you climbed onto his back. When you both had a secure grip, you stood up and the movement bounced you more than usual. Under your hand, you could feel the vibrations of laughter in Cove's chest. Oh, it was a piggyback ride, okay. Let's go. Hey, let's go. Naturally, you found yourself heading down the roads towards the beach. Your spirits rose even higher as you strolled across the land, heading for the shopping district. Man, these places really remind me of the Coromandel Peninsula area. I think it's called the Bay of Plenty actually, but like kind of reminds me of the Coromandel Peninsula area where there's like a bunch of small beach towns throughout that area of New Zealand, of the North Island and stuff. There's a lot of beaches, a lot of pippy shells. You can even catch those pippy shells to eat the stuff and all that. It's pretty cool. Done it a few times. Arriving, you wove past tourists who were taking in the sights for the very first time. Being a local was a badge of honor you wore proudly. You casually walked past the shops. Over the years, some had closed down, but many of the stores were still exactly the same as they were when you were little. Cove snapped his head as far as it could to one side so dramatically you couldn't have missed it. Something clearly caught his eye, but you couldn't see it. There's a pretzel stand open today. Can we get one? When his gaze found you again, he wore the biggest smile. You chuckled. Yeah, you don't need to ask for my permission, lol. Does your heart want a pretzel? Yep, it does. For a moment, you both quietly laughed at that. You placed a hand over your own heart. And then I think you should follow it. Yes, indeed. Follow your heart. Guys, follow your heart. You're gonna get the ones that come with the little frosting cup, aren't you? That's right. I still don't get what that frosting cup means. What is that frosting cup? After that, you both happily made your way over, being pulled in faster by the delicious aroma of the stall. Oh shoot, I think I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, wait. Has it come? With that, you changed course to the pretzel stand for a snack break. Cove was very pleased by the morsel he picked up, and that was a good to see. Okay. The sun arched across the sky as you went up and down the road as a pair. By the time you returned to the beach, the day was beginning to fade into night. Cove kicked his shoes off, tossing them into the sand. He wanted to get his feet wet in the waves as fast as possible. And the seconds you had your feet free and your shoes abandoned in the sand, you kept going until you were ankle deep in the water. Cove sighed contentedly. You followed his line of sight up to the setting sun, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. It really feels like summer now. Well, unfortunately, it is autumn here. And it's getting colder by the day. He wore a bent smile when he turned to you. The light illuminated like a halo behind him, and the sight took your breath away. In fact, it was hard to think of anything that feels more perfectly summer than moments exactly like this. Being here at summer in Sunset Bird with you. I'm glad that we were able to come back for a visit. You hummed in agreement. Your heart fluttered the moment you met Cove's eyes. Your mouth lifted into a pleased smile. Yeah. You felt the ocean breeze brush your skin like a comforting, familiar gesture. Cove murmured quietly, losing himself in his thoughts again. Shortly after, you saw his hand shoot down into the sand. He stood straight back up with a lopsided smile, and got to work brushing the sand off his prize. You knew without a single word, Cove found a new shell for your collection. Ooh, yay, new shell collection. New shell. As you wandered down the beach, Cove followed you at your side in comfortable silence. Your shadows stretched across the sand like they were leading the way. The only noise you could hear were the soft footfalls of your feet and the waves gently rocking into the shore. For a moment in time, it felt like there were only two of you in your own little world. Eventually, the bubble popped when you realized that your phone was going off. It was Ma, hoping that you were going to be back soon. Curious, Cove's eye slid down to your phone. You let your hand fall back down to your side. You held the phone pressed against the palm of your hand. It's Ma. She wants to know when we'll be there. Cove stretched the back of his neck and shook his head. His mouth twitched like he just had a funny thought. Dang parents, always trying to make us come home before it gets too dark. Oh my god. You'd think after all this time they'd know that we always find our way home. I think she knows. She's probably just excited to spend time with you. Think so? Yeah, if I were her, I'd be missing you too. After one last glance, you put your phone away again. Cove gave a small shrug. Ready? Yep. Let's go. Together you left the beach, feeling the call of home pulling you forward. Parallels from the first chapter. The both of you ran off towards your mum's house, leaving the waves behind but welcoming the beginning of summer. Cove and you ran up from the beach, sand flying from your steps. Cove made it to the road first, but you managed to catch up to him by the time you reached the house. It wasn't exactly a race, and yet it also wasn't not a competition. Both of you were laughing by the time you bumbled through your old front door together. You inhaled deeply and shouted loud enough to be heard anywhere in the house. We're here! Your mums were seated in the living room. Their eyes sparkled as they looked on you and your light dusting on sand.
Hello.
Welcome home! Mum leaned forward, eyebrows raised at your jubilant entrance. Ma sighed wistfully.
Aww.
Ah, that brings back memories. Cove chuckled shyly as he scratched the back of his head. I hope we're not too late. Nope, you're just in time. But you better start packing it up. Liz will be waiting. Ma nodded as she stood up from her seat. She lightly ran her fingers over her clothes to smooth out the wrinkles. It took you a second to remember where you had put your stuff. You needed to get it all in the car so you could get everything back to your hotel. Can I help? You shrugged and directed him to your bags. With Cove, your mums, and yourself on the job, it only took one trip to the car to get everything. Cove firmly closed the trunk, and you thanked everyone for the assistance. Of course, kiddo. Come along. Briggs family, get in the car. That means you too, Cove. You know, you're essentially family anyways. Yeah, just like I said. You're considered the third child now. Thanks. Exactly. Well said, Airi. Cove climbed into the back seat with a decidedly touched expression on his face. You got in on the other side. When everyone was situated and buckled, the engine was started, and Ma pulled out onto the street. You couldn't help but feel amused to be stuck in the back seat with Cove. Your mum's driving you around. It was really like you were little kids again. Cove caught on you staring at him and gave you a bent smile. He was probably on the same wavelength as you from the sheer mischief in it. There was some light chatting on the drive. No one brought up anything too deep, and it mostly became swapping jokey stories. The entire trip was marked by a heavy sense of anticipation. Everyone was ecstatic to see Liz and hear what she had been up to. Oh yeah, yesterday was like my sister's birthday and all that, and like we bought cake and stuff, but we forgot to buy candles too, so we ended up using like a toothpick as a candle and lit it up, and man, using toothpicks as a candle, that's not a doesn't work. Doesn't feel the same. The fire doesn't stay on for very long. When you entered the airport, Mum pulled out her phone to call Liz. Ma followed the signs to the correct pickup area and asked for you to shout if you saw your sister. Yeah, Liz, we're at Wing B. There's a blue sign that says North America.
Alright.
Tell her that we're right in front of the building with the blue windows. She says that she's outside, right by a yellow truck. I see at least 3 yellow trucks. I think they're doing work at the airport. The back and forth continued, with Ma driving around the wider circular airport road, while Mum attempted coordination between her and Liz's location. Aha! You leaned forward, peering out the front of the car. A tall, poised silhouette pulled a pale purple roll-along suitcase behind her. It was definitely Liz. She waved to the car. Ma parked along the sidewalk next to her, and Mum put her phone away with a chair. Mission accomplished, team! Ma excitedly reached over to grasp Mum's raised hand, the thrill that both of her kids were back. Aw, that's right. Liz came closer and yanked open the back door beside her. She popped her head into the car, her smile ornery despite how tired she appeared. It must have been a long trip for her, yet her expression was that same familiar smirk you had grown up with.
Hey.
Hello, children. I'm back. Rude. Oh. Liz nodded at your chuckles, appreciative that you enjoyed her introduction. Yeah, hug. You quickly unbuckled and then launched yourself at your sister. She wrapped her arms around you and squeezed. Well, hi to you too, kiddo. Hello, sweetie. It's so nice that you're here. Hi, Elizabeth. He jokingly huffed at her. We're not children. Whatever you say, baby boy. She turned her gaze back to Mum and Ma. You really know how to make someone feel appreciated. Her spirits were high. You could tell she was just as happy to be here as everyone else was to see her. She left the door open, but ducked out to walk around the back of the car. She opened the trunk and lifted her luggage in. I'm gonna move the junk, Airi. I'll keep it in front of my bag so you can get it later. Ma's dropping you off first, right? Yes, but it's not junk. It's important. Liz slammed the trunk without blah blah blah. God damn it, it's so hard to read things out loud. Liz slammed the trunk closed without responding. Liz swung around to open the front door. You noticed that her hair had a few flyaways, no doubt from a long day of traveling. She leaned against the frame of the car, giving you and Cove a significant look. I am not sitting in the middle. I already have 5 hours of that nightmare on the flight. There's no way I'm getting in between the two of you. I mean, really, who would ever want to be the person pulling Cove Holden and Airi Briggs apart? Cove puffed out indignantly yet again at her classic tease of your relationship. Liz continued along like she didn't notice. I don't get how you decide who's scooting. I figured you can figure it out. You can fight it out somehow. Cove glanced over at you and shrugged. He unbuckled his seatbelt and moved to the middle. Yeah. With as large as Cove was, he technically was a worse choice for the middle than Liz. Despite Liz's height, she was still smaller than Cove. Cove didn't exactly even fit there. Cove's legs touched yours. The backseat became rather close quarters when trying to fit 3 grown adults. It had worked much better when you were all smaller. With the window seat opened, Liz squished herself into the car and shut the door. When everyone was settled, Ma began to pull out. We're off! Liz closed her legs, compacting herself slightly. She braced most of her weight on the door behind her instead of sitting up straight. It gave her a little more room. Hopefully we can finish the journey. The car is almost as old as we are. And it's still just as good as you are. You saw a plane driving out in the distance. You wondered where it had come from and imagined what all its passengers were here for. Mum turned up the radio as Ma merged onto the highway. The station was familiar. The normal soundtrack from when she had driven you and Liz around town. Liz bounced in her seat, enjoying the classic tune. The song would be old enough to vote at this point if it was a person. That was hard to believe. With Liz, the conversation livened up despite it getting later and later into the night. She told you all about her week and all the travel preparations she made. By the time she made it to the actual tale of travel itself, Liz started chuckling. On the plane, Liz had sat next to a couple of girls who had talked about how well they could read people. Liz recounted their conversation with her in hilarious detail, as they had apparently tried to guess her occupation after only shaking her head. Man, that is a terrible way to guess someone's occupation. Neither of the girls could agree with one another, and Liz had refused to just tell them. However, the drive to your hotel was always so long. Eventually, your group arrived, you yawned, and got out the car where it stopped. Cove clambered out after you. Liz gave a loud sigh of relief at all the extra space she had found herself with. You and Cove grabbed the luggage and then waved off your family after you said your goodbyes. After they left, you and Cove went to go find your room. You scanned the key card to unlock your hotel room. It sounded out a soft beep and you turned the handle of the door. The door creaked open when you craned your head in to take a look. The first thing you noticed was the large king-sized bed in the middle of the room. It was a prim modern-looking space. It seemed clean and smelled faintly like floral air freshener. A smile played on Cove's face as he watched you take in the space. The bed's nice, huh? Which one of us is gonna use it? Here we go again. I'm kidding. I just want to share, really. Good. Cove let out a breath in relief that he had been holding on to. I got a good hotel, didn't I? Yep. Cove smiled like a big, pleased puppy. You and Cove continued to chat as you settled in. You unpacked some of your stuff and checked out all the room's amenities. Cove pointed out the mini fridge and started puzzling over what food could be ordered to the room. However, the fact was, you both were exhausted. It didn't take too many yawns before you both changed into your pajamas and called it a day. You had to hunt along the wall to locate the light switch. When you finally found it, you flickered it off with a sense of triumph. You turned your head over to Cove, who had stood behind you in his pajamas. He was cozy and comfortable, but the pieces didn't match. He never minded that. We should get some sleep. Cove smiled, a soft expression that was adorable. Alright, let's go to sleep. Despite saying that it was bedtime, Cove took a step forward towards you. He wrapped his arms around your back, and you leaned into his embrace. Then he lifted you off your feet. What? Still not putting you down, Cove promptly dropped himself backwards. The both of you crashed onto the tight tucked sheets of the hotel bed. He laughed the entire time. Cove bouncing on the landing and absorbed most of the impact. You laid on his chest, feeling a little jostled. You absolute madman. Oh, I can't believe you've done this. They stood again. That was unexpected but absolutely thrilling. Your laughter only made him laugh louder. He smiled up at the ceiling, a thought clearly crystallizing. My dad used to do that kind of thing to me when I was little, sort of. Nostalgia was clear in his voice. It was a fond memory, and you felt something warm in your chest. You made a small noise of understanding that turned into a yawn. When Cove yawned in return, you pulled at the sheets until you were actually under the blankets. Don't let the bed bugs bite. These nuts. He found it to be charming, if the soft look on his face was any indication. Cove wrapped his arms around you and snuggled next to you. He let out a contented breath. You reached out and held Cove under one arm, and then used your other hand to comb through his hair. The two of you relaxed with one another, and you knew neither of you would want to be anywhere else. I can't believe we're really here. You and Liz and everyone else are gonna be here in Sunset Bird again. I was staring at all the scenery going by while we were driving here, and it honestly felt like we've never left. He ran a hand down his face. I mean, in some ways, it feels like it's been ages and everything's different. Some of that is definitely because I'm staying at a hotel instead of being in my room at Dad's, but yeah. Cove nodded. He understood completely. I'm looking... A forced yawn. A yawn forced an interruption into the statement. Cove was undeterred. I'm looking forward to this. He tucked his head into your neck. You felt his lashes fluttered against your skin. Same here. See you tomorrow, Airi. His words were a whisper, and you barely heard. It might not even have been that exactly. You might have just been guessing. Cove always had a habit of mumbling. It was okay either way, whether you heard it or only through thought you heard. The sentiment was true regardless. Cove would see you tomorrow when he opened his eyes and the sunlight returned to your hometown of Sunset Bird. You comfortably drifted off sleep and eagerly awaited seeing Cove tomorrow as well. Oh, where's my... Oh? Okay. I was like wondering why was my thing not reacting. Your eyes gently opened to see a dim, unfamiliar ceiling. You recalled where you were, a hotel room. Yawning, your muscles felt relaxed and warm, enough that sleep threatened to pull you under again. Morning. Cove's voice brought you back to consciousness. The heat made sense now. You knew the comfortable weight against you was your boyfriend, significant other. His arm was draped around you, and his fingers were lightly drawing shapes on your pajamas. You twisted over to face him fully. Morning. Did you sleep well? I did. The expression on his face softened with a content sigh. You felt his index finger lightly trace out the shape of a heart. There's nothing but good dreams when you're around. Oh, okay then. Huh. You took in a moment, enjoying every second of Cove's presence. He reached forward and fixed the stray hair that was sticking to your skin. His hand lingered and trailed down to the corner of your jaw. His blue eyes took in every inch of your face fondly. Neither of you were making any moves to get up and actually start the day. It was sweet and comfortable to be wrapped up in Cove. You could indulge it just a little while longer. Eventually, enough time flew by that there really wasn't any minutes to spare. There were too many people waiting, so you both crawled out of the sheets together. Standing up, Cove took a few seconds to stretch. He glanced over at you with an animated expression. I'm really looking forward to your mum's anniversary dinner tonight. It's gonna be fun. I think so too. This whole trip is great, actually. Being here with everyone is like having another chance at being a kid. We can do all the stuff we used to, and all the things we never did but wanted to. Oh yeah. Something about the way Cove worded that dug up a memory you hadn't thought about in a long time. The first time you met his dad and the money he offered you. Chewing at the inside of your cheek, it felt like a lifetime ago, but you knew that it would still matter to Cove if he knew. You just weren't entirely sure what it would mean to him. You snuck a quick peek at Cove, but his stare was already glued to you. He raised a questioning eyebrow, leaving the rest up to you. Cove frowned, but you had his attention. He slowly slid down to sit on the corner of the bed. Let me just have another sip of water. This is a very voice-intensive game, lol. Let me just... Okay, when you and your dad moved into the neighborhood and you ran away, remember that? Of course. Well, I met your dad first, and during that conversation, he offered me $20 to be your friend. His mouth fell open and his head tilted to the side. There was no unringing that bell. Feeling a bit guilty, you couldn't look at Cove while you admitted how you reacted to the offer. And I did take the money. The look on Cove's face twisted, his eyes pushed to a squint. His lips screwed up, and you saw his stare dart across your skin.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Ouch. Not really ouch. Yeah. Oh my god. The realization tumbled out of him in a whisper. You couldn't read his expression, but it remained firm. Oh no. Until big sad tears started bubbling and dripping down his cheek. You flew a few steps forward, shocked and eyes wide with concern. There wasn't a single thing that you couldn't possibly think of to make Cove feel better. Oh man, I'm burping so much. You merely stood there, watching him in silence. Cove's tense jaw slowly loosened as his mouth began to wobble into a frown. Emotions overtook him, and he failed to swallow down a broken sob. Oh man, now he's really sad. Oof. The tears pooling in his blue eyes intensified, and they streamed quickly down his cheeks. Cove hung his head low and let them fall. The uh, uh, All you knew was that you wanted to be there for Cove. You stood there silently, by his side in solidarity. It wasn't right away, but Cove eventually was able to pull himself more together. He straightened his back and sniffled. You took a nervous step backwards to give him some space. Cove let out shaky breaths when he scrubbed the remaining tears from his face. I'm not upset with you for what happened, or because you're telling me now. You didn't do anything. I actually feel bad for you. You had to keep a secret you didn't ask for, and it was for most of your life. A weight felt like it was lifted off your chest. The corner of Cove's mouth hooked into a bent smile, but his steel was still glossy with tears. I'm not mad at my dad either. Then why are you crying? His tone grew delicate again. His emotions were catching back up with him. I'm just so happy with my life, about how it went. But so much of that, whatever with everything, is out of your control. There's stuff like this. My dad secretly offering you money to be my friend. Remembering those days when I was little and pretty much my whole world was decided by other people really made it all hit. Especially because I'm finding out there was even more going on than I realized. His bottle lip quivered and new tears ran down his cheeks. It's scary to think about. It would have been so easy for none of this to have even happened. Cove threw his arms to the side, trying to convey where you were standing, where you had ended up after spending a life growing up together. What if my dad moved us to a different neighborhood? Or if I didn't move away with him at all? Or if my dad didn't care if I had friends or not?
I'm so glad.
But it didn't go differently. And you're here with me. We're together, and my parents are some of my very best friends. My parents are some of my very best friends, and I'm just really glad. Your legs felt weaker under you during his confession, but you remained rooted in place. Cove seemed to grow more confident. Airi, you're my one and only. Not used to sudden confessions. The sound of your heartbeat deafened everything else in the room. It really was a peculiar and wondrous thing, the direction and series of choices your life took. The shakiness in Cove's smile lessened, and it grew stronger and more assured. The warmth and joy of just simply being there with him buzzed under your skin. Cove's head tilted to the side as he observed you fondly. You both waited there, enjoying each other's company. When another minute passed, you felt a calmness settled in your chest. It's out in the open, finally. That's a relief. Yeah, but hey, your secret keeping skills are seriously unmatched. Chuckling, Cove ran a hand through his hair. You nodded in agreement, trying not to think too much about how many years you'd been holding on to that. We even got together before you brought that up. Yeah. His words echoed in your head. Cove was right. There was no denying to that. Airi, it's okay. Cove looked at you gently. So gently that the air got stuck in your chest. His head tilted the longer he observed you, and his smile bent.
Don't worry about it.
It's fine. I understand. There was a playful gleam, and Cove's expression shifted into a smirk. He leaned forward, and you could feel the warmth of his breath. Are there any other confessions you want to make while we're doing this? Instantly, you felt your skin felt like it was prickling and hot. Thoughts about dropping to one knee spun rapidly around your mind. What? He noticed your shocked reaction. Oh, actually, don't worry about it. I was joking. Cove scratched the back of his neck nervously. You took a deep breath, and felt yourself calm down. Thanks. Yeah. Cove clapped his hands together once, trying to clear out the awkward air. Well, we better get it back into business, huh? We got a full schedule ahead of us for your mum's big day. Blah, 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 blah. Man, reading out is hard. Sighing deeply, Cove shrugged. The look he gave you was warm and affectionate, and you knew that everything was going to be okay. Yes, everything's going to be A-okay. But thanks again, for letting me know what happened. No problem. I was glad we got to talk about this. After that, you and Cove moved around each other, busying getting dressed and ready for the day. Light laughter and chatter filled the air the entire time. Bags were packed and phones were sought after. Thank you. He plucked the phone from her hand and slid it into his pocket. You struggled to keep your giggles in when Cove raised a questioning brow. What is it? I should go past it probably 5 times.
Seriously?
Are you serious? Mm-hmm. Groaning, he resumed what he was doing before the phone crisis. When Cove's back was turned, you double-checked that you hadn't misplaced your phone either. You hadn't. There was nothing else stopping either of you now. In minutes, you were hopping into your ride and heading back to the neighborhood. It was another beautiful day in Sunset Bird. You couldn't resist rolling the window down so you could absorb it all during the drive. Cove sat across the seat from you, next to the opposite window. His gaze was locked outside, catching all the old landmarks the vehicle was passing. Your spirits rose even higher the moment you made it home once more. Eager, you hopped out of the car and let yourself inside. Your mums knew you were going to be there that morning. But the second you made it past the threshold, an excited scream nearly scared you out of your shoes. Airi, you're here, and guess what? I'm here too! Oh my god, it's Lee! While your heart rate settled, a broad grin quickly took over your whole face. Since your cousin moved out on her own, you noticed that she really found her own groove. She was still the same loving person she'd always been on the inside, but she expressed herself in new ways. Lee was strong, kind, and smart. Over the years, she graduated college with a degree in history. Though at last you heard she was pursuing her dreams, working towards getting into the music industry. Oh, good luck with that. Music is hard. The time you spent apart from Lee was always hard, but when you two came back together, it was all worth it, even though your eardrums might argue otherwise. Lee giggled, putting her hands on her hips. You couldn't wait for all the new things she was going to update you on. Lee leaned to the side to glance past you and meet Cove's eyes. The grin on her face widened while she waved. Hi, Cove! Hey, nice to meet you, Lee. I got him practically at dawn. It was a whole thing, but at least I made it here alive. Lee excelled and slumped her shoulders to emphasize how exhausting the ordeal was. Behind her, Liz made her way over. She crossed her arms at the scene. I'm here too, in case you're wondering. Liz's lips twitched before twisting into a smug smile. She brushed the stray hair out of her face. You make it sound like I'm always following you around. I have a life of my own, if you weren't aware. I know, but when I'm home, I'm always keeping an eye out for my big sister. Old habits. How sweet. I miss the days of checking to see if someone else made it to the TV first, too. Oh. You laughed. Of course that's what her mind would go to. Another friendly shout rang out in the living room. It was as cheery as it ever was, from the many times you've heard it over the years. Good morning, family! Your parents both came out of the side hall together. Morning.
Well,
Now that everyone's here, I do have a little something to mention. Ma put her hand lovingly over her wife's. Mum leaned her head into Ma's with matching affection. We're all still having dinner together, but Pam here actually has what? But Pam here actually made plans to take me out to brunch to celebrate our anniversary. Just the two of us. Ooh, a date. Please, she hooked her arm around Ma's waist.
sorry.
Sorry to push you out, but I'm sure this group of mature grown-ups will be able to entertain themselves for an afternoon. We don't need to find a babysitter or anything. Totally. Yeah, have fun, Muns. Don't worry about it. We can survive that. Easy. Enjoy your lunch. Brunch. This works out actually. An afternoon open means that there's time to meet up with Terry and Randy. Hope they're free today. The two friends still lived around the area. They knew you were coming for your mum's party, but when or how you might arrange to see each other wasn't set in store.
Sounds good.
Definitely, we should call them. I'm just going to have some more water. Hydrate time. I have some people I'd like to say hi to as well. Liz had her cell phone in hand, ready to get her plans made before she was even done speaking. Arching an eyebrow, she then directed the next part at Lee. Would you want to come along? We've missed out on a bunch of cousin bonding time in the past. I'd love to. It's been an honor to hang out with you, Liz. And whose fault is that? No. Don't worry. Fun is my specialty. Chuckling, Liz smirked. Well, try not to have all the fun, and don't get into too much trouble. He shook her head and Liz winked. She then glanced back at her phone, rapidly typed a new text. Excellent, it's settled. She squeezed her wife's hand. Her gaze took in the whole room, ecstatic to have the house full again. Today's going to be perfect. I think so too. I truly couldn't be happier with my wife, my children, and our whole beautiful family. It's already a wonderful anniversary. There were awes and sweet comments from the group, gathered around the couple of the hour. Seeing how your mums were, you couldn't help but hope that when you got to be their age, you could be as proud of your life as them. Hold up, let me check on something for a moment. Okay. But Ma's attention then fell on you, and the look on her face twisted mischievously. A shiver shot down your spine. This is a very good time of year for a marriage, don't you think so? With snickers, all eyes eagerly slid over to you and Cove. Shocked at her implication, his cheeks burned red. There was no missing the meaning in Ma's word. She was clear as a bell, and she knew it. But you stared straight ahead, trying to conceal the marriage thoughts now spinning in your head. You caught Cove shyly rubbing at the slight scar that was still visible on his arm. His stuttering never quite reached full sentences. It instead turned into silence. Cove's brain was shutting down. Ma had sympathy for him. You don't have to say anything. It's just a little thing to ponder. At that, Cove's mouth snapped shut. With a stiff nod, he creakily glanced at you. If it was the two of you here, you got the impression he would have had something to say. For now, a meaningful look was all there was. Right then, let's get back to what we're doing. After that, you enthusiastically began setting up plans to meet up with your friends. They were both able to come see you, having kept their schedules free for this, and you couldn't wait. Cove was also speedily sending text messages. Since you conveyed the plans to Terry and Randy, you imagined that he was letting his parents know about what he was up to. The group continued to chat and catch up until it was time for your mum's brunch and your big meet up with your friends. Soon enough, everyone was out the door, looking forward to their fun-filled afternoons and the dinner later that night. Once outside on the neighborhood street, you looked to Cove. He stood at your side with a bent smile. Terry and Randy were driving into town while you and Cove were traveling on foot to meet them at an easier to reach spot. Man, we really are kids in Sunset Bird again, having to rely on other people who actually have cars to really get anywhere. Now we're stuck walking to whatever is nearby. Kicking a pebble with the toe of your shoe, you wondered if your feet would be sore by the end of the day. Oh, definitely. But it had been a while, but your muscle memory could step in. You've done this walk thousands of times. I'm just glad Terry and Miranda were able to meet up with us. They're worth going the distance. The corner of his mouth bent, and after a thought he shrugged. Maybe if we're lucky, they'll drive us home. Maybe. Let's go. You bounced forward several steps and shot Cove a playful look over your shoulder. With that, the two of you began your trip down the old road. It was a casual stroll into town, and before you knew it, you were at one of the large parking lots in Sunset Bird. It was the one that used to have the little crepe stall. Remembering the delicious smell, you got lost in thought. The store did well enough that it moved into a full-size building a couple of years ago. You'd seen the pictures. It was very cute. The parking lot was now just, empty. A lot of cars would theoretically park in. Not many took the offer. Cove pulled out his phone, texting Terry and Randy in a group chat to let them know that you'd made it. Someone must have answered already because Cove gave you a status update while still staring at the screen. Randy texted, "I can see you." Oh, real! The blare of a car horn cut you off. You and Cove both turned towards the source of the noise. One of the windows rolled down. Hey, buddies! Your friends had arrived, making a spectacle of it as expected. Being the only car meant that they got the pick of the lot, so they pulled a stop in front of you. The window closed back up, and instead the two front doors popped open. Terry and Miranda stepped out onto the pavement. Hi Cove, hi Airi. With a cheery wave, Miranda skipped towards you. Terry on the other hand walked speedily over to Cove, squeezing him into a hug. A quiet laugh escaped Cove. Along with the majority of the air in his lungs, he didn't fight the constriction, but instead gave Terry's back a pat with a large grin spreading across his face. When Cove let go, Terry came right up to you. He held his fist up for you to bump it. Nah, kinda don't like that choice. And made it a turkey. Shyly, you opted to wave instead. Terry happily switched gears and opened his fist, waving back. It felt nice to have your friend group united as adults. Terry was currently a full-time lifeguard down at the busier beach a town over. You were proud of him. He helped a lot of people in his line of work. Miranda took Cove's hand and one of yours in her other. Her eyes alight, she gave you both a gentle squeeze. I'm so happy to see you again. Hi Terry. Oh, hey Terry. Hi Miranda. He answered assuredly. It was clear that he was equally glad to see them. The reunion was long awaited. For a while, Miranda had been working hard as an assistant at a school while continuing his own education. She also kept busy running a small online shop selling crafted knickknacks she made. You're thrilled to have this impromptu afternoon together. It had been way too long since the four of you last got together like this. Miranda raised your hands. Giggling, she eyed you both carefully. So, how have you been? Things have been nice. Been doing well.
That's cool.
I'm really glad. Miranda put her hands behind her back, sweetly leaning forward just a smidge. Of course, everybody already knew you'd be a success. What about you? I'm super. Terry sided up next to Miranda and put his arms around her shoulder. Sighing dreamily, Randy chuckled up at her boyfriend. Yeah, things have been unbelievable. He pressed his cheeks against Miranda's, and she let out a light squeak. The sight put an amused grin on your face. Good lord. I'm already messing up with reading. Your friends made a wonderful couple. They knew each other well enough and cared each other so much. It was no shock at all when you heard the news that they'd started dating. The corner of your mouth curled playfully while you took in the warm welcomes all around. At times, it was still kind of funny how your group of four friends evolved into two couples. Not that you were complaining about it. You thought it was an amazing thing. Cove then pulled out his phone and peeked at the screen. He repeated the motion every so often. You raised a curious eyebrows at his unusual behavior. Cove was much too focused on whatever he was doing to even notice you noticing him, which was even stranger. Is there anything either of you want to do while we're here? Any place you'd want to see? I'd be up for a lot of things, but actually there's something that I want to do right here. Oh yeah? What's that? Terry poked at Cove's arm playfully. Miranda met your eyes, silently asking if you had any idea what Cove was talking about. You shrugged. I just want to see my friends. Huh. Cove, you're already doing that. True, but I could be doing it even more. You, Terry, Miranda all turned to Cove with identical, incredulous expressions. His stare moved to a point past you three when you heard the scrape of sand and gravel underfoot. Someone else stepped into the parking lot. Startled, you jumped at the call of the warm voice shouting over.
Sup, guys and gals?
Hey, it's Derek. It's been too long, bro. Sup, guys and girls. Running a hand through his hair, the person who crossed the lot was unmistakably Derek Suarez. He was beaming the whole way. It's been too long, even though it hasn't actually been that long, but long enough. Oh man, honk alert, lol. Waved at him. Stunned, the only thing you could think to do was to wave hello. Amused, Derek bashfully scratched the back of his neck and waved with his other hand. I missed you. He spoke to you gently. You're thrilled just being there, reunited with him. Derek was a good friend of yours, and he had been for a long time. Hey. He waved over at Terry and Miranda pleasantly. Over the years, they all had met several times in passing, simply through being friends with the same people. Yeah, that's what life does to you. That's what making friends does to you, I guess. Sup, big man. It's great you could come. Cove put himself next to Derek. Happy, he clapped a hand on his friend's shoulder. Hi, thanks for coming. Of course, thanks for inviting me. Sheepishly, Cove looked back at you and the others. That's when it clicked. In your mind, it wasn't his parents he was texting earlier, it was Derek the entire time. Derek is in town for a few months to help my dad and his dad with some work. Yep, I'm working on my own business thing too, but I'm still involved with running the scuba shop when it's called for.
Very nifty.
Nifty. Humming, Derek elbowed Cove.
So,
But hey, we don't have to stand around here for my sake. What's the plan? Let's hit the town. Eager to get along, everyone piled into Terry's car. The rest of the afternoon was spent visiting spots all over Sunset Bird, laughing and reminiscing the whole way. Once it started to get late, Terry brought you and Cove back to the neighborhood. You didn't have to walk there after all. Oh yeah, I need to save before something happens. save here. Okay. You didn't get out until promises were made to see each other again before your trip ended. Side by side, you and Cove stood in the streets and waved at the car as it drove away. Terry tapped the horn for 2 honks while Miranda stuck her head out the window to wave back. You caught Derek in the back window, giving you both a wide grin. Sighing as soon as the car turned down another street, they were finally out of sight. Let's have some more water. Well, that was one party. Time for another. Let's ready to go see our mums? Always, let's keep the celebration going. You shimmied a bit right there in the streets for added emphasis. He looked at you amusingly and rolled his eyes. Come on, let's go. Spirits high, you and Cove crossed the distance to your house. It was always time for the anniversary dinner. You'd barely stepped over the threshold of the condo before Mud descended eagerly, welcoming you both. The usual greetings were followed by questions on everyone's well-being, after which the conversation moved on to an excited chatter about tonight's dinner plans. Cove excused himself to the restroom to freshen up before being on the move again. But when he returned, you're shocked to see he had entirely changed outfits. Where did that come from? I packed it with me. What? I packed it with me so I could get dressed before the dinner without having to go back to the hotel. Didn't you? Or maybe you have stuff still here at your mum's place? No, Cove, I didn't do that. But your mum's party, it was at the country club. And that's also where Liz took golf lessons. Not everyone is there in their Sunday best. Oh, did I choose the buff body type? Oh, okay. It'd be different if we were going to one of the club's parties, but we're only going for a regular meal. Cove was as befuddled by your explanation as you were with his actions. He threw his arms up, desperate for understanding.
Seriously?
How can you not dress nicely for a country club? I don't think the Cypress is as special as you've decided it is. You saw Ma, she wasn't in formal clothes. She's one of the guests of honors. His frown wobbled. Oh no. His frown wobbled and his cheeks became far pinker. He looked down at his own self regrettably as he pulled out the cuffs at the cuffed ends of his shirt. You know, yeah, that happens. That happens. He seemed more like a scolded child than a grown man dressed for the latest charity gala. I thought she was gonna get changed while you and me were. Well, it's okay. It's okay. That earned you a sheepish smile, even though he still clearly wished his look hadn't garnered any extra attention. Nice shirt, though. Cove's eyes stole a glance at the hall, as if he was calculating if he had time for another quick change. Unfortunately for him, it was not meant to be. The time to head out came far quicker than you expected. Mr. Holden and Kyra swung by the condo to make sure everything was in order, and for your second surprise that night, Mr. Holden was also in formal clothes. Cove's face excitedly whipped towards yours at the same time. Like son, like father. Like father, like son. Mr. Holden went to Kyra's, the 2 men pointed at one another. I'm just imagining that spider meme now, that Spider-Man meme. You know, the one with the 2 Spider-Mans like pointing at each other. In that one. See? Who knows? Exactly, Sport. Kyra was talking to me like I was crazy. The aforementioned Kyra placed a hand delicately yet dramatically across her eyes. Clifford, our son only knows this because you're the one who raised him. Man, even smiling. Mr. Holden chuckled, his arm moving to scratch at the back of his neck. Yeah, that's my boy. The end of Cove's mouth gently bent up. He truly was his father's kid, in more ways than even he realized. They may be the only ones in their group, potentially the only guests at the entire club, all guised up, but at least they could now take solace in one another. That looked to be good enough for them. All of the Briggs family, as well as the honorary members Cliff, Kyra, and Cove, headed out at the same time to the Cypress. It was to be a perfect reunion. An impeccably smart host greeted on arrival, smoothly leading the way to the seat of tables reserved for your group. Once you'd all settled in, chosen drinks were poured into delicate glasses. The food would be coming out later, letting you soak up the atmosphere for a little longer. Smiling, your parents faced the group of familiar faces, all gathered here together to share this special day with them. Ma reached over and took Mum's. Oh, frick, I keep misreading. Mum reached over and took Ma's hand, clasping it between both of hers. Thanks for being here tonight, gang. Marrying this lady right here is the best thing I've ever done, and there's no one else I'd want to celebrate that. And there's what? And there's no one else I'd want to celebrate that with. Yeah, go mums! Yeah, we're so lucky. Not only do we have each other, but we've got such a large and moving and loving family through all of you. Around you, you heard people saying "aw" and chuckling appreciatively at the comment. Lee had clasped her hands tightly in front of her, her eyes shining. You met Liz's misty ones, and the affection she had for her mums carried over to you too. Hey! You returned your attention toward the happy couple just as they leaned into a kiss, smiling all the while. The table responded with cheers and clapping, shouts of "Happy Anniversary" and other congratulations, continuing even after they'd broken apart. Mum beamed as she watched Ma giggle dreamily. Oh, hey! Cove's head snapped out suddenly as he placed both hands flat on the table. Dad! He narrowed his eyes as he stared at his father. I know what you did. Cliff's eyes were wide as he glanced around nervously, looking genuinely confused. What? What did I do? You offered Airi $20 to be my friend. There were a perplexed murmuring as the table started asking their neighbors about the sudden accusation. None even looked more baffled than Cliff, who scratched his head as he screwed his face in intense concentration. Huh? When did that happen? Cove threw his hands up in the air. Behind him, you saw curious glances heading away from nearby tables. The first time you met! The memory returned to Cliff. You saw it clearly in his expression, which flickered like an old dusty light bulb, from pensiveness to realization. Oh yeah. He winked at you, then plastered it on a sheepish grin before turning back to his son. That's starting to ring some bells. My old master plan. Sorry, sport. Sorry, sport. Cove slumped back down into his seat, the fight leaving him in face of his father's total lack of shame. Sighing, he shook his head. Apologize to Airi. Unreal, lol. Cliff's expression went somber, as he looked you straight on. He usually was so laid back, especially now that Cove was old enough to get himself out of most trouble, that it was a little unnerving. He opened his mouth. You braced yourself for his apology. Instead, he gave you a thumbs up. Thanks for letting me get away with it this whole time. You're also my true ally. Yes, no problem. It was fun talking to you, mate. Oh my god, Dad! Kyra rubbed at the bridge of her nose, her eyes closed, yet she didn't seem surprised in the least. You could only suppose she had enough direct experience with Cliff's antics to be inured to new revelations. The ladies of your family, on the other hand, were shooting each other questioning glances, mouth-tongued open, but they were uncharacteristically quiet. Ma was blinking rapidly, still reeling from the back and forth between father and son. While none of your family seemed entirely sure how to react to the news, one thing was clear. Cliff had pretty much escaped the trouble, all thanks to you keeping quiet for long enough. I mean, I wouldn't care anyways. The waiters reappeared, delivering delicious plates of food, and dinner began in earnest. Both conversation and laughter continued to flow freely as the night went on, with the two families relishing the opportunity to be together once more. Let me have some more water. Jesus Christ, this is a mouthful. I forgot how much this game is a mouthful at times. I should have filled in more water for my bottle. Yeah, I'm about to be out of water. Eventually, after your hunger and thirst had been fully satisfied, the plates were cleared and the event began to draw a close. Cliff and Kara exchanged goodbyes with your family before heading out together. Cove gave his goodbyes to his parents while heading back until your mums were ready to head off. You were getting a lift back with your mums. It was already late, so you discussed the possibility of going straight into the hotel rather than going back to the condo, but Cove had asked if they'd mind taking him back to the neighborhood. He wanted to visit it a little longer. Your mums had happily agreed. Liz and Lee were feeling tired, so your mums swung by their hotels during the trip home while you and Cove made the full journey with them. Riding it in the back seat of your mum's car, with Cove felt more than a little nostalgic. Riding and rolling on da 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 da, riding and rolling on baby da 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 reloading, riding da 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 da. Ba 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 da ba ba da ba 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 da ba ba da 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 ba da 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 da. Okay, stop. Riding in the backseat of your mum's car with Cove felt a little more than nostalgic. As your eyes drifted over to him, his head rested on the window. It was hard to believe how much time had passed. Mum stretched as she got out of the car, smiling over her shoulder as she headed towards the house. Time to put my feet up. You two joining us? Cove shook his head. No thanks, it's your anniversary. You don't have to entertain me. I'll take a walk. It's never any trouble to have you over, Cove. Let him do as he pleases, Lani. But you better not stay out But you better not stay out too much later, or there'll be trouble. Ma chuckled as Mum waggled a finger, her expression exaggeratedly severe as she reprised a role that in truth she never really played. Neither of your parents had been particularly harsh as you'd grown up. Ma joined the act. Don't go too wild just because there's no school tomorrow. Lol. Laughing, they made their way inside, leaving you standing out in the dark street with Cove. You didn't even need to ask him why. You already had the answer for this. He wasn't yet ready for the day to end. Without a word, Cove began to stroll down the road. You walked alongside him. Oh shoot, don't tell me it's this scene. Oh god, it's the shirtless scene coming soon. Do I cover this? Maybe I should cover it. You know your destination long before you arrived on the dark and utterly deserted beach. There are no lights from here, nothing but the moon and the stars for illumination. The only sounds were the gentle waves rolling in and out, the soft sounds of the footprints left in the sand. In other words, it was perfect. Cove stepped out into the waves and without a word. He looked up at the sky with a smile, then tucked his head down and began to pull his fancy shirt off. Oh, okay, maybe I should cover... Ta-da! Okay. Let me just cover it. Yep. Sorry, this is. I'm probably gonna do that. Don't wanna don't wanna have something happen to me. I don't wanna have something bad happen to my channel. Lol. Okay. Good enough. He tucked it over his head and lobbed it backwards, further up the beach, and reached out to reach the waves. Yeah, I would be embarrassed. What the frick? He slipped his dress pants off and tossed them back in roughly the same direction as his shirt. He was down to just his polka dot boxer briefs. Why'd I have to know about that? Ah, yeah, there. My god. Wow. Sometimes you're really struck by the ways in which he was braver than his younger self. This was definitely one of those times. Agreed. I'm gonna make myself a tiny bit bigger. There. There. Let me pop that comment back up. Okay then. This was definitely one of those times. He never ever would have done this when you were both living on this street, but you'd also know he still wouldn't do it with anyone other than someone he spent all those years with. Cove wadded further into the water until it came up to his chest. You followed Cove deep into the sea. Your wet clothes clung to your body, soaking up the water and weighing down like a physical reminder of all the unwritten rules you were breaking. Cove grinned as you approached. I'm going to be in so much trouble with my mum's when we get back.
I guess.
Oh yeah? Oh well. I think it's over. I'll make sure. I'll keep myself this big for now. Think fast. He splashed water at you as soon as the words had left his lips, giving you no time to prepare. The splash had caught you full on, leaving you spluttering and drenched. Swam away. Cove swam after you, laughing. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Cove sighed, then looked at you mournfully. The sudden shift in mood alarmed you, but those worries disappeared as soon as he opened his mouth. You just want to rearrange this. We're still not merfolk. This world is cruel. You snickered. After a moment, Cove's mock sadness broke, and he joined in. The two of you wound up drifting further down along the shore, chatting and enjoying the chance to be back on the beach that had provided the backdrop of so much of your childhood. Eventually, a silhouette of structures appeared up ahead. As you drew closer, you realized it was the old playground. Cove spotted it too and hurried towards it, dragging himself out of the water and heading into the park. I should put this up here just in case, lol. I'm gonna put this here for now, just in case. Wet sand coated his feet and lower legs with every step, clinging thickly enough that it began to resemble a bizarre pair of boots. As you followed him, you wondered how many visitors this little park got these days. There were officially no children living in that neighborhood now. Okay, I was right to put it there. Slightly off-centered, but you know what? Good enough. Cove gazed at his surroundings with a wide-eyed awe. He didn't care at all that he was soaking wet and dressed only in his underwear. Crouching, he gently pushed one of the child-sized swing sets, marveling at it all. I can't believe how tiny everything is. Were we seriously small enough to use these? I mean, to be fair, mate, you're a lot taller. You're a lot taller than me. He shook his head, unable to fathom just how little you'd both been when you first met. They walked over to the monkey bars. Once these had been a challenge for you. Now they were little more than waist height next to Cove. Cove turned to his back to the bars and hopped onto them with ease, sitting on them comfortably. Yep. It was strange seeing adult Cove juxtaposed with the baby playground, but you took your own pace on the structure. This place had been something so exciting to Cove back when he first arrived, and apparently it was to this day. Boop. Lol. Just letting you see the expression better. Cove smiled eagerly as he approached, kicking his feet in the air happily, briefly forgetting how the low vantage point until the tip of his toe scraped along the ground. He continued to swing his feet, but with little more care. With a little more care. You thought it was adorable. In this moment, you were home. It just so happened to be the place you'd grown up, but really, anywhere you could be with Cove was that for you. He had a special place in your heart for so long, and so much of your life had been shared. You'd grown up on the same street, which had given you some common ground, but it went far beyond that. You had both chosen from a young age to share your life with each other. You wouldn't have it any other way. Here we are again. Here we are. The mood had shifted now. The funny, impulsive night beach trip, with the spike of adrenaline that came from you playing in the water under the moonlight, had settled into something quieter and more nostalgic. Cove leaned back, tilting his head towards the sky to admire the stars above. Too bad I wasn't able to bring my surfboard along for this. Cove shrugged dramatically, trying to lift the mood a little. The dinner was really nice, though. It was great to do all this. The smile he had when he spoke those words fell as quickly as it had appeared. It went by so fast. We all came out here for the party, and now it's over. Liz, Lee, our parents, we'll all be going back to our own things now. But what else can you do, except say it's okay? I guess it's part of growing up. Oh yeah. This place and these people, they're our foundation. It shaped who we are now, like making castles out of sand. I owe a lot to Sunset Bird. Wait, hold up. Hold on, I need to message someone. Hold up. For some of XD at the end. This place and these people. Oh, okay, I forget this part. His eyes crinkled fondly, and Cove's voice was gentle when he spoke again. We had a good childhood, I think. Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, I agree. He shook his head, sighing heavily, frick, heavily. Good lord. Alright. His smile took an uncharacteristic harsh twist when you had a feeling where this was going. We better get home before your dumb parents, who don't know anything, get mad. You had to laugh at the half-hearted impression of the sour kid you'd once encountered in this very park. He chuckled along with you for a moment before tapering off. I hope we don't get grounded. The jokes kept coming. It was very amusing to imagine that not only could your mum somehow ground you as a fully grown and independent adult, but that their powers extended over Cove as well. As much as you were enjoying being back here, Cove was right. You had to accept that you needed to go. It was late, and your mums was still expecting to see you before you got a ride back to the hotel. You and Cove hopped down from the bars, landing easily with the ground only a short distance below. Before you could return, you had some clothes to retrieve from the beach. You retrod the same path. I think I can move this back to where it was before. Is this good enough? This is probably good enough. Good enough. I'll be slightly bigger than normal. Before you could return, you had some clothes to retrieve from the beach. You retrod the same path, following the footprints down to the shore you'd left in the sand only for a little while earlier. Once Cove had scrounged up his abandoned clothes, you started to walk up the old path home side by side. Wow, I forgot fuck it, screw it. Just move on. Droplets of water slipped down your skin and fell onto the ground as you made your way back to your mum's house. Damn it, I thought we were done with the... Yeah, just leave it here. You know what? As you and Cove were still soaked and sandy from your earlier adventure, it was likely that you were leaving quite a trail in your wake. But you'd seen Cove's bedroom growing up. It was only natural for him, yes. A bedroom filled with bits of sand. The air was slightly humid and already pleasantly dense with moisture that felt like a hug as it closed around you. Any damp footsteps that were left behind would take longer to dry in this weather. The signs of your adventure might even be visible when the sun came up the next day. You hope so. You quite like the idea of you and Cove leaving your mark on your hometown again, even if only for just a little while. Despite being out late and in Cove's case, mostly undressed, the balmy summer night prevented you from feeling any chill. You were entirely comfortable. In truth, you felt warm inside out. The day had been so lovely, spending time with friends and family, and your eyes drifted over to Cove. Cove Holden, your boyfriend, significant other. Just seeing him brought a smile to your face. Yeah. Cove gladly allowed you to take hold of his hand. Once your hands were intertwined, he rubbed his thumb along yours in content acknowledgement. You were full of joy. All other concerns and the day of stresses and the day-to-day stresses of normal life were squeezed out by it. All you could think at that moment was how your life was wonderful. Just for a little moment, I need another sip of water. Because good grief, this is a mouthful. Oh god. Every second and every day needed to end sometime, and that time had nearly come for tonight. You had to get at least some rest to bring it all to a close. And so the two of you went inside to say goodnight to your mums, as well as clean up yourselves as best as you could. Your mums, both in pajamas, ready for their own sleep, hooted in laughter as you came inside, dishevelled and damp, and the teasing continued until the car came to get you to the hotel. Cove stayed silent as he put his casual clothes on again, placing the formal ones back in the bag he brought them in. You'd given Mum and Ma plenty of material for a mock scolding, and you got a playful lecture about not getting into water without bothering to change first. You just grinned at your partner in crime, feeling like a naughty kid again, and it had been worth it. By the time you and Cove finally dragged yourselves to your hotel room for the night, the sky had been dark for some time, and the lonely hotel hallways were quiet. The late hour made you feel a sense of fulfillment. You were making the most of your trip. It was such an odd thought that this was almost over. You had settled into this new routine naturally. All the familiar streets and faces made everything easy to get used to. The two of you drowsily shuffled past an ice machine and into your room. Cove set his phone on his bedside table, and you followed suit. Man, I'm a bit like burping and hiccuping so much. I didn't even drink coffee this time. What is this? You both started settling in for the night. The hotel room was a welcome sight after your long day. You noticed Cove rubbed the back of his neck and yawned. His voice was quiet and distant. I hope the pet sitter is doing good. The wish wasn't exactly directed to you. It was just a sleepy thought that Cove had unleashed upon the world at large, but you still agreed. I hope so too. Cove still kept fish after all these years. Delightful, colorful things in huge aquariums. He apparently spent a lot of time watching them swim. Wow, what a hobby. His fish were the most important things at his place to him. You had not been surprised when he told you that he had found someone to look after them in his absence. Cove's anxiety about leaving them hadn't subsided. Over the vacation, you had called him a few times, texting the pet sitter and asking about his fish. They'll be okay. They'll be alright. They'll be right. Cove turned his head to you, the nervousness still coming off despite his exhaustion. I know what you mean, but you chose that person for a reason. You trust them. But they're all fine. They just miss you. Cove smiled, appreciative of your comfort. You nodded in satisfaction. Mission accomplished. Yes, mission accomplished indeed. Cove yawned widely. He seemed confused at the magnitude of it. He groggily blinked at you. I think it's time for bed. You squinted at your wrist as if looking at a watch. Yeah, it's bedtime o'clock. The two of you got changed and brushed their teeth. In no time at all, both of you were cozy and ready to sleep. After that, you flopped onto your side of the shared bed. Cove headed over to his side, and you felt the mattress dip under his weight. You tucked yourself under the covers, and Cove snuggled in closer to the middle. You turned on your side to face him and scooted slightly closer. Your noses almost touched, and Cove watched you with a soft expression on his face. Cove gently spoke his words like a lullaby. Good night, Airi. Good night. Cove's eyes fluttered shut, and he let out a contented sigh. There was a warmth from Cove's body next to you. He was right there. Your eyes fell closed sometime after. You weren't sure exactly when, only the fact that they were now too heavy to open. You felt a mixture of bitter and sweet emotions. You were happy to be here, but sad it was ending. There was relief that you could soon be in your own home again, but also wondering when you could return here. There were many more feelings swirling in your head that hadn't even crystallized in thoughts yet. Paradoxically, you felt nice, but also confused, but then also nice from the confusion. In the back of your mind, you realized that you must be really tired. Unsurprisingly, your exhaustion did not give you too much time to muse on your emotions. In what felt like seconds, you were already dreaming. The dreams dancing around your head became fragmented and faded until you couldn't remember a thing from them at all. You were growing more aware of the real world. You woke up feeling enveloped by warmth. Humming happily, you felt Cove's fingers trail your arm. Yeah, why not? You snuggled into his chest, letting out a delighted sigh. The warmth of your breath sent a shiver through his body. You wrapped your arms around him, holding him there. Not that Cove minded too much. He happily held you back. The sleepy morning couldn't last too long, though, and eventually you felt Cove's thumb rubbing circles into your shoulder, trying to ease you back awake. I don't want to leave either, but it's got to be done. You have to get up, Airi. Yes, I get it. You're an early bird, mate. Once we get past the day, we can spend as much time together in bed together as you want, okay? Delighted, you nuzzled your cheek into him again. You could feel his fingers aimlessly drawing squiggles and circles on your skin. I like the sound of that. You sat up fully with a big yawn, stretching your back, then your arms, and lastly your neck, before accepting the day. The blanket fell to the side while you swung your legs over the side of the bed. A part of it almost got caught on your foot, but you kicked it away. Cove slipped out of bed on the opposite side. Today would be your last day in Sunset Bird. The only thing you had planned was some family time in the old neighborhood. You figured you'd see where the day took you from there. Yawning again, you glanced over at your clothes. There was just one more day to live out of your bag. We had one more day? Okay. The next several minutes passed in comfortable silence while you internally debated between two shirts. Alright, let's get things going. Our families are waiting. Nodding, you and Cove swiftly finished getting ready in the small hotel room. As soon as you had your stuff together, you were ready to go. You were off. During the ride there, you and Cove decided to visit his dad's house first this time. When you got dropped off, Cove eagerly hopped out into the street with his eyes locked on his father's condo. Your gaze fell onto your boyfriend. He stood in the middle of the street where you grew up together, while the summer sun made him shine. Though he was the brightest light in your eyes, no matter what. You wouldn't give up a single second of your time with Cove. Meeting him there, you were looking forward to how the day's chapter would unfold. Cove strode up to his old front door and casually flung it open without bothering to knock it once again. You followed at his side as he poked his head in. You closed the door behind you both. Hello! You found Cliff and Kyra in the kitchen, getting breakfast ready. Kyra was cutting an apple while Cliff was watching a frying pan sizzle. Oh god. Okay. Cove's parents waved from across the room, not straying from their tasks. Good morning, you two. Yeah, morning and hello to you two. I hope you slept well. Thanks for swinging by. You're more than welcome to join us for breakfast here, if you hadn't already eaten, of course. We haven't yet, though even if we had, there's always room for more. Kyra chuckled. She put down the knife she had in her hand so that all her attention could be on her son. You're still my giant growing baby boy. Mom, please. Kyra didn't pay Cove's whining any mind. Instead, she put a finger up her lip as she thought, her eyes on you and then glimpsing towards the window. I wonder, do you think your family's eaten yet, Airi? I'm not sure. Cove and I came over here first. Your eyes flickered over to the clock on their oven. Given the time, your mums may have eaten, or they could be having a slower morning. It was a coin toss either way. Well, give them a call. They could come over. Cove nodded, a sage expression on his face. Making them breakfast is the least we could do after how much food I ate at the house growing up. Yeah, good point. Good point. You did visit our house a bunch of times back then, huh? True, bud. Very true. Alright. You took out your phone. Even though your mums both had cells for years, the house number was the one you had memorized as a kid, and the first entry on your contacts list. As the call connected, you tapped the speaker button. You figured it'd be easier if everyone could hear what was going on. You heard a click and a familiar static. Hello, Airi, it's nice to hear from you. Hey Ma, good morning. I'm across the street right now and Cove's family wanted me to invite everyone to breakfast. Do you want to come over? That sounds delightful. Pamela and I can do that. Liz and Lee should be able to make it too. Would that be fine? Cliff took a step forward and spoke loudly so that his voice would be picked up. It definitely would be. The more the merrier. We may have gotten together for dinner last night, but there's no law that we can't do it again for breakfast today. Enjoy the company while you can is what I think. Ma giggled. You could hear some rustling over the line. Thank you. I'll let them know and we'll be right over. Cliff gave a thumbs up. Oh shoot. Cliff gave a thumbs up. Cove shook his head with amusement. Dad just gave a thumbs up. I'm telling you since you can't see him over the phone. Kara snorted, and Ma's laughter rang out, filling the kitchen. Cliff switched the thumbs up hand to instead scratch the back of his head. Well, sounds like we'll see you soon. Goodbye for a little while. You could feel her smile from her voice. Bye, Ma. You ended the call with a satisfying tap of the red button. Cliff's eyes wandered around the space. We better get cooking. I can help. Me too. No way, you're guests. Kara and I got this. She grinned. There was something playful in the twist of her lips. I couldn't have said it better myself. Cliff. I've been in your spot before, and there's no choice but to accept it. Cove sighed, but from the sparkle in his eyes you could see he was entertained. Fine, we'll just hang out over here, I guess. Good. Cove walked over to the living room and gestured at the couch. You both took a seat, getting a comfortable spot to wait for food and family. Cove tilted towards his parents with his chin, then he shook his head with a gentle smile, silently asking if you could believe this. Do you see this, Airi? All you had was a silent shrug. Time passed. Filled with light chatting, Cove kept a careful watch on his parents' culinary progress, and teasingly kept running a commentary. Oh, Dad added another pinch of salt. I wonder if that was a good idea. Cliff had to raise his voice to project over to the living room. He sounded very amused. It's funny that you of all people are commenting on my salt usage. We were both born and raised in salt water. Besides, I'm sure you remember when you were both 12, when you were about 12 and tried to make Cove flushed slightly, but a smile remained as bright as ever. Do you really want to start talking about cooking mistakes, Dad? Because I remember a lot of things too. Like, what about that chowder that was supposed to be a pie? Oh god. Cove and his family were quite a show to listen to. You chimed in occasionally, but mostly you provided the laugh track. Eventually, there was a rhythmic knock on the door. That's them! He said it loudly for his parents' benefit. You nodded and got up to greet your family. When you opened the door, surprisingly, there were no mums. Hey, it's the bros and it's the friends. It's our friends. I'm trying to say friend. Terry stood in front with Miranda at his side. Derek waved from behind them. Hey buddies, we came to see you two before you left. The plan would have been to go over to Airi's house next if you weren't here. Luckily, you two aren't too hard to find. What he had said, and hi. Cove burst into happy laughter. His brow was high in surprise, not unlike how he looked after unwrapping a nice present. Well, thanks for coming. Hello. Kara's voice carried through the house from the kitchen. Cliff likewise projected. Great, the whole gang will be here. You heard the sound of a cabinet open and shut. Oh, a pan clattered and the faucet turned on.
Are we interrupting something?
No, you're not. My parents, sister, and cousin are coming over for breakfast. They should be here in a few minutes. Yep, but my dad always makes tons of food anyway, so it's no problem for you guys to join in. Cove waved off their concerns before pausing with a thoughtful hum. The only problem is, do we have enough places for all these people to sit? He peered back into the house and started counting the dining room table, chairs, and bar stools. 5, 6... Cliff interrupted when Cove began trying to use his fingers to connect the different chairs to different guests. Don't worry, some people can squish together on the sofas, it'll be fine. This is really gonna be a party. Well, I'd be happy to accept the invitation. Yeah, you have to be crazy to skip out on this. Thanks for making room. We're really glad that you came. Your three friends finally piled into the house. Before they had a chance to settle in, the doorbell rang. Only Miranda had sat down. Now that has to be them. Take a break if I need to. Okay. I'll tell you. People laughed as he walked back over to the door and opened it up. Oh wow, that transition was bad. He was right this time. It was your parents, Liz and Lee, all crowded on the front steps. They squinted into the house and were surprised at just how many greetings were made. The sheer force of the chorus of hellos was impressive. How did they beat us here? And how early did Airi call you? We're literally across the street. Terry snorted at your sister's confusion. He seemed quite pleased with himself. We were a surprise. We call ourselves very cool. Cliff smirked as he adjusted the settings on the stove top. It's a little more crowded than expected, but we're making it work. Cove led the final group to complete the picture inside, and they took the chance to greet you, along with everyone else. With the excited energy buzzing around the table started to calm, you had a second to truly appreciate the most important people in your life all together again. It still felt too good to be true to have everyone here though. And then you noticed Kyra stood back up. She clapped her hands once in a satisfying smack. Anywhoosies, I hate to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to know that the food's done cooking. Cliff crossed the floor to place a pile of silverware on the table, and then he dropped stuff off on other surfaces and around the rest of the living room. When it was done, he gestured towards the food.
Okay.
The plates are in the kitchen. Serve yourselves and sit wherever you like. The guests happily formed a line, and the meal was steadily passed around. Man, this reminds me of those Christmas barbecues. Before long, each person claimed a seat in the Holden living room area. Some at the table, others on the kitchen island, and some situated at the couches. Conversations trickled across the various clusters of friends as everyone dug in. Cove finished his plate in record time with a pleased sigh. He put his fork down and surveyed the room. This is really cool. Just how we're getting into this kind of thing. I like this too, Cove. I hope we'll be able to make this happen again. Of course, there'll always be more races to get the gang back together in the future. Yet, the two of you might even dare to celebrate your yearly anniversary. Every year. The smirk on Liz's face grew only wider as your mum giggled at her teasing. Ma shook her head, chuckling softer now. Liz, shush. Honestly, we just might. You've made a good point. It does come around every year. You should. Seriously, you deserve a big celebration for your magical day. The kids are right. You got a lot of people who want to appreciate you. You gotta give them a chance. It's true. I know I have a lot to thank you for. There were more nods of agreement around the room, and your mums took each other's hands for support. Neither were expecting so much encouragement. We'll think about it. She'll think about it and I'll tell. Lani, stop thinking so hard if she doesn't agree. Pam? Good job. Good job, Mum. Now with all that settled, let us continue to enjoy this perfect gathering. Agreed. That's something I actually say and I actually text back in real life. Agreed. Let me just have another sip of water. There was a playfulness in Kyra's stare as she scanned the room. She slowly placed her index finger on her chin. Now that I think about it, there's something I haven't done in a while. Eyebrows were raised at Kyra's incomplete thought. She was wordlessly urged to continue. Kyra didn't hesitate. Look through all the photos Cliff has here. Wouldn't that be fun for all of us? What, Mum? Why would you say that? Practically all those photos are of me. And that's why. Embarrassing my baby boy is just one of the perks of being a mum. Much to Cove's dismay, his mum was thoroughly entertained at his outburst. She winked in your direction. Meanwhile, Cliff eagerly stood up with a wave of proud affection for his son, and completely missed Kyra's teasing intent. I think that's a great idea. Anyone else interested in the pictures? I am. Lee shot her hand up before Cliff could even take a full step. Terry and Miranda snuck each other a glance before nodding with matching grins. That sounds swell.
That's fantastic.
That'd be lovely, Cliff. Mum tried to hide her amusement behind her hand, but she couldn't stop the snicker that slipped out. Oh boy. Mr. Holden gave you a thumbs up, noting your contribution. Cove buried his face in his hands and sighed slowly. His shoulders deflated in defeat. Fine, we could take a look. Everyone happy with picture time? Yay! Yes! They both excitedly raised a fist in victory. Smaller cheers from your friends and family worked their way across the room, and even you bounced up to your feet excitedly. Mr. Holden flipped over his faded album of physical pictures. He held it up to his face. The corners of his eyes crinkled, and though the book covered much of his face, you were certain he was smiling fondly. But he didn't keep it to himself long. Laying the family album on the dining table, you and the rest of the party gathered around to get a peek. Oh God. The picture on the first page was baby Cove in a cute little onesie. There were several coos and awes from the group, and Cliff's eyes were shining with tears as he sniffled. He's grown so much. I've raised that boy. Even as a baby, he looked unimpressed. It was even sweeter to observe everyone's reaction. They continued to praise and tease Cove over his younger years. Meeting Cove's stare, his palate deepened. The tip of his ears turned pinker the longer you noticed him. He wasn't enjoying the acute attention, and you understood the feeling, but you could also tell that he wasn't as distressed about it as he was projecting. Cove was fittingly acting a bit like a baby. After breakfast and the photo showcase, everyone decided to stick around. Hanging around Mr. Holden's house, turning into a walk around the neighborhood, and then for lunch you switched over to your mum's condo. It was a really good time enjoying each other's company, but eventually the sun began to set, and there was nothing else to delay your friends and family from going home. Inside your mum's house, the home you had been raised in, the group was taking their time saying their goodbyes. It was tough for you, your family, your friends. You knew what was weighing on the mood. It might be some time before you'd see one another again. It's a pleasure having you all here, and you're welcome to come around again anytime. Man, I kind of relate to them in this aspect. Like, you've seen your friends basically every day, and like from primary to high school, if you all went to the same school and all that, and then like suddenly university comes in, and you're all in separate like classes and majors and different schools and all that. Yeah. And you kind of miss those days where you like can see them every day and stuff. But like every now and then we do like organize a meetup of sorts, throughout the years and all that. So yeah. Well, what was it doing again? Oh yeah. Ma wrapped an arm around Mum with a light chuckle. Mum leaned her head gently into her wife, and they both beamed.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know we're all adults with our own hectic lives, but we appreciate the time taken to visit. Snorting, Liz crossed her arms. She leaned one hip out to the side while her lips curled teasingly. You make it sound like this was such a struggle. Some of these people still live here, and it was a vacation for everyone else. Even so, it was very thoughtful, and I hope everyone has a safe trip home. Go save again. Kyra clapped a hand on Cliff's shoulder. He was puzzled as he leaned in so he could hear her. That means you too. It's dangerous crossing the street. Remember to look both ways. Hey, now. Yeah, good luck with all the important grown-up things. I'm sure you'll have to do when you're all out of here. Definitely. I'll give updates next time something exciting happens. Or something lame so I can vent about it. How nice. I'm glad Lee won't be forgetting the little people. Never ever. I'll keep in touch too. You better. Well, me and Randy aren't going to be far, so we can keep an eye on town for the rest of you. Nothing will get past us. Right, we'll make sure everything is okay. No need to worry at all. That's kind of you. Miranda and Terry gave each other pleased smiles, already committing to their self-appointed task. Derek scratched the back of his head, wearing a pensive look. It's always sad when I have to leave this town. It happens too often, but at least there will be people looking out for Sunset Bird. That makes me feel better about it. After a pause, Mr. Holden gave the younger folks a thumbs up.
Great.
That's all great. You got a lot to be proud of, and a lot to be looking forward to. Well said, Cliff. I'm thankful that I've been privileged to witness the growth you've undergone over the years. You've each matured beautifully. Cove was touched by his parents' words and struggled to come up with something to follow. Yeah, it's been good seeing everyone. No one had taken a step yet, and you couldn't put this off any longer. It was time to say goodbye. Yeah, I'll miss you all.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, thanks. We'll miss you too, kiddo. Very much. Mum wrapped you around a big hug, and then you felt the weight of another person in her arms. You realized Liz got pulled in too. We'll be back soon enough that you'll be kicking us back out. I don't think that would happen. I'd like to see you try push it though. It'd be funny. She held you both tighter in another moment before letting go. Afterwards, there was more sniffling and hugs, a lot of hugs. Then people started trailing out into the street, seeing others off. Your friends and family got into their cars and left the neighborhood. By the time things had fully settled, you realized that the sun had set. Earlier, you and Cove decided to have a car pick you both up. Neither of you wanted to bother your parents after such a long day. It would be a little while longer before it would get there though. It was the right choice. As both sets of parents shot you weary looks, the four seemed ready to call it a night. It didn't take either of you or Cove very long to assure them that it was okay, to head home and go to bed. With one more round of good nights and goodbyes, your families returned to their condos. Then the only people left on the street were you and Cove. Cove closed his eyes, humming happily while he waited for it to pass. He stared up at the sky. Cove's hands were in his pockets, and his shoulders were relaxed when he caught your attention with a tilt of his head.
So,
Can you guess what I'm thinking? Well, at that moment, you were in the neighborhood. You grew up in together with some time to spare. You rolled your shoulders back and pretended to crack a few of your knuckles. An amused look fidgeted on Cove's face while he observed you silently. Could you perhaps be thinking that the fireflies are out now? Right. You want to go to the poppy hill before we leave? Always. There was an eager bounce in your step as you and Cove crossed over towards the hill behind your mum's house. Side by side, you stared out at the view in awe. As you imagined, the hill was dotted with the glowing firefly light. It perfectly reflected the memories of childhood held closely in your mind. Cove sighed contentedly, seeing them across the hill, weaving in around the blades of grass and the stars above. Cove cocked his head to the side before his expression twisted playfully. When he met your eye, you were about to prod him about what was on his mind when he took off running. Oh, I bet I'll catch one first. After a few minutes, Cove paused, staring at you. From where you stood, you weren't entirely sure about his expression, so you gave him a small wave. You aren't gonna catch any? No, not tonight. I'm enjoying the show so far, although it's longer than I thought. Don't worry, I have a firefly before you can say sunset bird 5 times fast. The fireflies took Cove all around the hill, flittering in and around of his fingertips. Every so often, your heart could flutter watching the way Cove would stop and stare up wondrously at the twinkling bugs above him. The pursuit for fireflies continued until a handful had been caught. Cove crossed over to you with a bright grin that could rival every twinkling bug and star around you. Cupped between both of his hands, Cove carefully held about a firefly. Oh, frig. My nose is suddenly so itchy. What is this? Cupped between both of his hands, Cove carefully held a firefly. The corner of his mouth twisted before a few giggles escaped him, and you knew that feeling well. The way the firefly would buzz around, tickling the palm of your hands. Cove's eyelids fluttered open, and meeting yours, he watched you with a complex mix of emotions, heavy with the weight of 15 years of history of memories. It's really a relief that I got to see the fireflies. This trip wouldn't have felt complete without it. Yeah, I think you're right. You spotted another firefly lowering to your eye level before looping up the top of Cove's head. It landed right on his hair and you smirked. What? You have a very tiny firefly hat. I do. Before you could answer, the firefly took off and disappeared into the night. You gave it a tiny wave goodbye. Well, that didn't last very long. That's too bad. I'll remember them as my tiny hat forever. Me too. Taking a deep breath, Cove held your eye. He appeared to be conflicted about what he wanted to say next, and you waited for him to make his choice. It's so strange not to live here anymore. Most of my life, neither of us were ever really away from Sunset Bird. Well, unless one of us went on a trip somewhere. Or when both of our families took trips together. Remember that? He chuckled, losing himself to fond reminiscing. You couldn't help but match his grin. I liked that road trip one a lot, though I don't think we could squish into that RV again. We're way too big. Laughing, Cove shook his head. His brow creased the longer he sat with the thoughts spinning in his brain. Those visits back with my mum, I remember what a big deal they felt back then. To be away from here without anyone else coming. For a whole few weeks. Oh, how knew I little. Thrown a little off kilter, Cove hadn't been expecting that question at all. Both of his eyebrows raised, and part of you wondered if you had somehow spoken gibberish instead. Honestly, I've been wondering about it since I was 13. Kyra always kept the details to herself, even when you never said a word either. Mostly, I just tell her about the times we hung out, and since you were obviously there when things happened, I didn't have to tell you too. Fair enough. That's true. But I would be really enthusiastic about it when I was telling her about what happened, cause you know, you're an important friend to me. The time we spent together was important. So I definitely would have been embarrassed if my mum told you any of that. I really appreciate that she kept it to herself though. Oh, I think that's nice. All of it. Thanks. Thank you for telling me. Let me save here. I'm gonna go have another sip of water. My throat is parched from all this talking. Oh man, I still haven't watched those videos from school. Unbelievable. I need to do that soon though. Thank you for telling me. After that, Cove became quiet, simply gazing into your face. The way the lights around sparkled in his eyes reminded you of the moonlight reflecting off the waves in the ocean. There was a depth to it that you could hardly grasp. A part of you felt compelled to speak, to do something, but you were entrenched. Cove held you completely in his place as much as the firefly. His next words came out as a whisper. I love fireflies. Every time I see them, it makes me happy, makes me think of you. The lasting eye contact finally broke as Cove let his eyes shift towards the hill. Fireflies and you are linked together in my head so strongly because of all the times we spent together with them, and because they're kinda like the feelings I have for you on the inside, made real. A soft warm light that's fluttering and tingly all around me. He faced you completely once more, his eyes now glossy and even fuller than with abundant affection. Oh hey. Cove then opened up his hands, holding the firefly settled there towards you. He was wholeheartedly offering it towards you. The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on you after he confessed what the fireflies truly meant to him. Suddenly struck with emotions, the words cracked in Cove's throat. He smiled wildly and continued on. That night, the summer when I moved, where we all went to catch fireflies. Was one of the first truly, completely, purely happy memories in Sunset Bird. Even when I had good days back then, I was so sensitive I usually ended up getting upset over something at some point. I'm guessing you can remember that. Yeah, very, very much. He chuckled softly at himself, and your mouth curved into a smile. Sure, Lissy got kinda bossy near the end of the mini adventure, but that time it didn't matter. I wanted to run around and play with you, and her and Shiloh too. I wanted to be there. It was amazing. He closed his eyes, sorting through all the emotions you were certain were swirling around inside him. You know that night years ago, the one after the Orca event, where I snuck into a room with a firefly? I wanted to tell you what I said here. About what the fireflies meant, and about the feelings I have for you. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not directly, at least. It was implied a little bit. He shifted on his feet, remembering his prior shyness brought out a sheepish countenance in Cove during the present. Then Cove's stuttering laughter burst out from the tension. It's pretty lucky for me to have you decide to do it yourself. I cannot even describe how shocked I was when that actually happened. It was like you just knew all the words I hadn't been able to speak. But his nervous giggles finally settled out as a more contemplative tone came to his voice. God, this time it's my turn. What? Wait, what? There's more I want to say tonight. He had been speaking to you so familiarly, so sweetly but then his tone became hard. It was more serious than you ever heard in your long history together. Airi, I promised you I'd always be there whenever you wanted. I meant it then, and I still mean it now. I mean it even more than ever. Cove? He may have not said it directly, but he had gotten the message clearer than if he had shouted from the rooftops, and Cove knew it. Ah. Cove's legs shook despite talking straight. His entire body had gone rigid. He winced, trying not to force his joints to actually move. Your feet remained locked in place, churning in your own sea of emotions, giving Cove the time he needed. Ultimately, Cove graciously dropped down onto both of his knees with a muted thud. His head was hung low in embarrassment as he clung onto your pants to stop from falling over entirely. Cove mumbled what you thought was an apology, though how he carried himself meant it was directed at the ground. You still couldn't move from that spot. Keeping a tight grip, he was able to awkwardly shift a leg lower so that he was being propped up on just one knee. There was a pause. Then he looked up at you with both eyes, as blue and wide as the sea, and just as wet. He released your clothes and instead put his hands over his heart. Airi, in a small, fragile voice, he spoke. Holy moly! Still not used to that. I love you, I love you. You mean so much to me. I don't even know what life would be without you. Tears fell heavily, and the words dropped out as painfully. I'm sorry. Have I been able to handle a major romantic moment in our relationship well? No, you haven't. You don't need to answer that. He laughed breathily. He laughed briefly. It was almost more of a wheeze. I never made things easy, especially when growing up. Life was so hard for me, and I made things harder for everybody else. We definitely had our ups and downs next to that, but at the end of it, we always just got closer. He continued to sniffle as he made a few false continuations of unintelligible stammering. Eventually, Cove found what he wanted to say next. Thank you for being my girlfriend. And thank you for defending me from Jeremy. And thank you for putting up with me when I'd panic about stuff outside my control. Thank you for never minding when I sneak over to your house through the window. Thank you for standing up to Lizzie when she would be mean to me. Cove's eyelids squeezed shut in an attempt to stop himself from rambling further. Yeah. Cove's outpouring of gratitude accumulated in a final piece of appreciation.
Thanks for waiting for me.
And thanks for being such a patient person. I know I kept you waiting for so long. He took in a slow, controlled breath, and then without stuttering or stopping, he said the words out loud.
Will you marry me?
Oh God. Airi Briggs, will you marry me? Yeah. Let me just. Yeah, I think I might actually have to cut this episode a bit short. Holy shoot. I might play a bit of the wedding arc and then I'll stop stream, perhaps. You nodded joyfully. Cove collapsed forward, catching himself with his hands before landing face first into the grass. The poppies around his face fluttered from a grand sigh of relief. Oh my God. Thank you. Eyes filled with fresh tears, he lifted his head back up to smile at you with all the love in the world. Thank you. Oh wow. Thank you. I know that's all I've been saying this whole time, but I'm sorry, but just thank you for being here and for being the one I get to be with. Somehow, all you could think that it was for him, Cove Holden, the man you loved, and now the person you were going to marry. Then, yeah, go for a hug. You couldn't hold back any longer. You threw your arms around your fiancé and held him tightly. He hugged you close he hugged you as close as he could get, desperate to feel you. The place where you met, where you grew, and where you fell in love was now the place where your shared life together truly began. Yes. Oh shoot. Your eyes drifted close to let yourself appreciate it, to anchor yourself in this moment and held on for as long as possible. You, the both of you, never wanted to let go. You're certain of it. The rest of your days would be spent side by side. It was all you'd hoped for. When the swirling excitement of your engagement relaxed back into the more familiar style of gentle comfort your relationship brought, Cove stood up. He lifted you along with him. Oh, and I do have a ring too if you want that. It's just, you know, sentimentality. The firefly felt better to me. Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah. Cove chuckled bashfully, picking a stray strand of grass off of his pants. You're tickled by the turn of events that unfolded here. You had definitely considered asking him yourself, and never would have guessed Cove Holden would beat you to it. Suddenly, Cove's now wide eyes snapped to yours. How are we going to tell people? We're leaving earlier in the morning, and it's really late now. Should we try talking before we go? The two of you put your heads together to come up with some kind of decision for this predicament. Maybe we could try calling your mum's house phone? If they hear that, it means they haven't really gone to bed yet. If they don't, they probably won't even know it rang. Calling their cell phones might wake them up. But I could do the same for Dad's house. Yeah, that could work. In sync, you and Cove dug out yourselves and began to call the respective homes of your families. Oh, this is a mouthful. Jesus Christ, good lord. Cove stepped to the side as his father presumably picked up. You couldn't pay attention to his words for long, as Mum answered your call next. Briggs residence, how can I help you? Hi Mum, it's me. I wanted to see if you were awake without bothering you, if you'd gone to bed. Yeah, who raised such a thoughtful person? I'm impressed. She chuckled at her own comment while getting quieter. You could tell she was pulling her face away from the receiver. Lonnie, Airi's on the phone. When she spoke again, it came in loud and clear. Mum's coming over. Oh, she's coming over. Oh, You twisted your head to the side after hearing Cove's exclamation and saw him tap on the screen to switch things to speaker mode. Oh my god. Oh yeah, weird question. Not really weird question. Kinda late though, but like, what did you guys have for food? Wait, have you guys had dinner? I don't know. But anyways, what did you guys have for food? I had chicken pie for dinner. Say hi, Mum, Dad and Mum. Airi's here and so her mums, sort of. They're on the phone too. You quickly followed Cove's move and let your mums be on the speaker. Hey, Briggs family. Good evening, ladies. Hello, it's nice to hear from you. Agreed, even though it's unexpected. What's happening, kiddos? Well, the thing is, wait, I'm gonna call Liz. Pam, get your phone. You can call Lee. What, you don't have to do that. I want to, sweetie. This is news and they're going to enjoy hearing it. Isn't it? This is news they're going to enjoy hearing, isn't it? I'm certain they won't mind. I mean... Hey, in that case, Kyra and I could call your friends. I got their numbers. Seriously? Of course. They had to call me plenty of times trying to reach you whenever you misplaced your phone or forgot to charge it. Wow. Dad. An awkward smile crept on your face as you tried to absorb what was happening. Your parents got to work, leaving the old landlines on while they used their cells to call Lee, Liz, Miranda, and Terry's apartment, and Derek respectively. Res- respectively. Every call went through, and soon the whole main group was on the line, and they were expecting answers. There was no putting it off. Cove instantly understood. You didn't even have to break out the puppy dog eyes. Uh, he sputtered a string of syllables, and then he cleared his throat. All false starts, he thought bitter of. What? You could feel his brain turning. Cove decided the best way to approach this. His brow frowned deep, and then, with his expression and tone serious, he finally got it out without a trace of hesitation. We're getting married. Airi and I are engaged. Yes, indeed. Haha. Cove reached over to take your hand as a physical sign of your union, even though no one could see it. It made him feel better. The hill filled with cheers of congratulations. You heard Terry's distinctive whoop, and your mums start to joyfully whisper to each other away from the receiver. Lee squealed and Kyra cooed. There was no confusion or need for pause. Everyone in your life was immediately on board with your plans. Cove turned his head and beamed at you, excitement in his smile. It was coupled with a fond squeeze to your hand. You grinned back at him.
I'm so glad.
I'm so proud of you, Cove. The two of you are going to be happy. I am sure of it. Dad. Cove snippled, eyes wide and emotional. Yeah, I will be. Both of us will be. Kyra spoke up gently. Thank you for being so wonderful to my baby. I'm lucky and grateful that you're going to be part of my life forever. Yes, yes. Well put, Kyra. I was a keeper for sure. Your family couldn't stay quiet for long and began to chime in. I can't believe how grown up you are, and I couldn't help but I couldn't be happier with how it all happened. Congratulations, Airi. You're one of the smartest cookies there are. You're making an amazing life for yourself. I don't think I'm that much of a smart cookie though. Oh shoot, what the hell? Pretty sure I'm not that much of a smart cookie though. I mean, I basically failed at all of my maths tests in both primary and high school. Not a great time. This is totally amazing! You're seriously getting married! It's like we're real adults and all that. But you guys are already adults, lol. Yeah, it's almost hard to believe that my baby sister is marrying a person. You know, if Cove wasn't such an obvious choice as a husband for you. Her tone turned abnormally gentle. You're doing good. Thanks for the positive rating. You're welcome. Lee giggled, and your mums had some chuckles. Cove stood awkwardly, not entirely sure if he or Liz were being laughed at. Your three friends stayed silent. You believed they were intentionally giving your families a chance to have a moment. But once they said their pieces, it didn't take long for your friends to jump into the conversation excitingly. Congratulations on the engagement! It's crazy how we're really at the point of our lives. Some days it feels like high school was yesterday. But it's great. Both of you are definitely Sunset Bros' best couple. Terry added on eagerly. You are the aspiration. I'm stoked that you're going to be official. This is a big step, but I'd say you're more than earned it. You've more than earned it. With everything you've been through over the years. You both deserve to be with each other for the rest of your lives. Cove had appeared weepy before, but this sealed it. He cried. Everyone's words had built up and what the frick? Collided? I don't know. Into Cove shedding the happiest tears you'd seen. Thank you. These were people you had cared deeply about, and they were so happy from your engagement. It was heartwarming. Good luck, kiddos. You got a journey ahead of you. Cliff agreed with a chuckle. They've known each other for 15 years already, and still haven't gotten sick of each other yet. How hard could making it work for the rest of their lives be?
It's no trouble.
For two of them, not difficult at all. Yeah. Connected to your family, old friends who had stuck by you for years, and the love of your life, you took everything in. You soaked up their love, the excitement, and the feeling of anticipation that the future was a mere hair's breadth away. But ultimately, the night was growing late, and many phone calls all had to come to an end. After goodbyes were shared, you were left with just one another again, in the quiet space of Poppy Hill. I think that was nice. Me too.
Oh,
We have to go to the hotel now, huh? A part of you didn't want to leave that Poppy Hill, but you knew it was time to go home. Trailing a few steps behind Cove, you looked back down the hill. You spotted your childhood home immediately. I'm grateful we could come home here and see how things are without us. It was nice.
Yeah.
It really was. With Cove right there alongside with you, you made your way down the hill, with the same stars above trailing away. Your last night in Sunset Bird was closing out. You were lost deep within a dream, adrift in the current of your unconscious mind. Cove was with you even there. His presence was strong as your mind, flitted from scene to scene, the logic of the conscious world melting around you. Something jolted from your slumber, the visions you'd constructed slipping away even as you scrambled to catch them. It had been a good dream. You opened your eyes to an unlit, unfamiliar ceiling. The darkness permeated the room so thoroughly that you were sure it was still the middle of the night. As your eyes adjusted to what little light there was to catch onto, a smiling face cozied itself right above you. There he was. Good morning, Airi. The grin was bright enough to make it seem like maybe the sun had risen after all. You, early bird. Please stop being a morning person. You echoed his words, assuming he'd checked the facts, in spite the way of the very night-like situation surrounding you. His expression softened at your voice, the tender affection in his gaze, obvious despite the dim space. Oh, jeez. He closed his eyes happily as you rubbed the top of his head, muzzing up his hair. Would you prefer me to wake you up by tapping on the windows? Maybe. Cove simply smirked, amused by his own wit. I mean, you really should have expected this was gonna happen. Way more than once. I'm guessing you woke me up for some reason. Are you ever gonna let me know? Well, this is our last day here. Everyone might still be asleep, but if we get up now, we can at least see the neighborhood. Do you want to? You just nodded.
All right.
Great! Okay, stop. When he held up one of those hands to help, then he held up what? Then he held out one of those hands to help you get up too. Cove complied, crouching down to scoop you up before gently sitting you down again. Before you could head out, you and Cove both needed to get dressed. You did so quietly. The strangeness of the hour meant that your body seemed less coordinated than usual. Each article of clothing a new puzzle, but you could manage it. The two of you were eventually ready to head out into the wide world. Dawn still hadn't broken when you left the hotel, yet it was easy enough to get a ride down into Sunset Bird. Just save here again. The journey was peaceful. You might have expected sleep to attempt to claim you once again, with the sky still being so dark, but Cove's excited energy was infectious. Morning was finally starting to come over to Sunset Bird, as you arrived almost like the sun itself wanted to be there to welcome you. Cove turned towards you, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. One more summer beach trip? You laughed, nodding to reassure him, as if there was any alternative now that you were here, and he was looking at you so eagerly. Yeah, one more. You could have taken your time getting there, dawdling under the morning sun, or you could have taken the short walk at a regular pace. And both of those would have been just right for some other occasion, but this time without either of you saying a word, you and Cove set off sprinting. The two of you talked gleefully down the street towards the beach, as excited and as ungainly as the kids you'd once been. You're laughing with joy and at the absurdity of it all. Being here at the break of dawn with the boy you'd once discovered on the nearby hill, who never completely grew up. As it was still early, you did your best to keep the noise down. To the side, you saw Cove covering his mouth to stifle his own giggles, similarly aware of the people sleeping in the condos around you. You thought of what the mean old not grandparents would have said if they could see you now. All you could do was continue running and stumbling down towards the beach, away from the residents and their sleeping occupants. Oh, okay. Save here. Let's just have another sip of water. Oh man, I'm like actually out. I think I'm actually out of water. Yep. Ugh. Huh. It had only been a few minutes before you arrived at the expensive at the expansive ocean shore. Cove kicked off his shoes and strode right into the water, not stopping until his feet was entirely submerged and the waves tickled his ankles. Shutting your eyes, you enjoyed the cool sea breeze washing over your skin. The two of you stood there, watching as the sun continued its ascent over the horizon. Silence fell between you until finally dawn had fully broken. Even then, Cove spoke in a whisper. I can't believe it's over. Cove reached out and enveloped your hand in his, pressing your palms together tightly. The silence returned just for a second. I'm glad we came this morning, and that we came on this whole visit back.
I'm so glad.
But more than anything, I'm glad for ending up in this town in the first place. If I got to grow up with a really nice neighbor, I wouldn't have wanted any other life. Cove looked over at you out of the corner of his eyes, not turning his face away from the sea. His expression was full of affection, from the gentle curve of his smile to his clear, contented brow. It was a stark contrast to the tears rolling down his cheeks. You counted yourself lucky. Even though you were leaving now, this place had gifted you with so much that you carry with you wherever life might take you. The memories you made, the lessons you've learned, the people you'd built relationships with, you keep those pieces of your life in Sunset Bird forever. You stood with Cove, silently watching as the bright rays swept away the last of the night's shadows until the day truly arrived. Hey, the song. Your spirits were high as the sun rose even higher in the sky. Da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. Like a gentle breeze, like na 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 na. Hmm? Okay, fine. I have to be quiet now. The two of you had found yourself mendering. Okay, that's enough. The two of you had found yourselves meandering back to the neighborhood street on sandy feet, strolling down the path as you'd done thousands of times before. This was where it all started. You were compelled to look at the exact spot you'd first encountered Mr. Holden sitting dejected on the curb. He wasn't like that anymore. Still, you couldn't forget the day it began, just as you couldn't believe what an adventure it led to. Things had never been the same since that moment, and you couldn't be happier for it. Your mental lingering on that meeting had turned physical, causing you to stop in your tracks. Let me just save here again. It was only when you heard Cove's voice calling your name that you'd remember when you were, and realize what you'd done. And what a present it was. A shining sun, a clear blue sky, and Cove by his side, all the most natural things in the world. So, what's the next step? You watched Cove expectantly, waiting for him to guide you forward from here. There was a crinkle around his eyes as you laughed. It's up to you now. That's too much pressure. Hey. His voice was light, gently coaxing you out of your shell.
It's okay.
How many choices have you already made to get this far? I'm sure you can handle one more. No matter how much time might pass, there were some things you could count on to be constant. Cove, your family, his family, all your other loved ones being there for you when you needed it was one of those things since the beginning and for always. Let's save again. Knowing they were there and you would never be truly alone make the future look all that much brighter. Lol. The world was full of possibilities, even in this little town. You never knew what you might stumble across, even in the places you knew best. If you kept your eyes and mind open. Cove nodded, his gaze shifting from you to roam across the little place that you both called home. There's a lot that's still going on out there in the world. A lot of different ways things could go in the future, but for this, I think that'd be the perfect choice. You beamed his approval of your suggestion, lifting your spirits ever higher. The days growing up in Sunset Bird had been so wonderful, even the prospect of leaving again made your chest ache, yet you weren't going to let that stop you. It would be hard, but you knew that it would still be there, waiting whenever you wanted to return. Facing Code, who had been by your side through it all, you knew that one day you look back on these moments just as fondly reminiscent about your childhood growing up here. Each happy moment you experienced became only a memory of what used to be, and that was what life was, and that was okay. me just save here. As it was from the beginning and continuing the way for always, life took another step forward. Hey, yay! Now to the wedding arc. Hey, wedding DLC. Okay. Because you're engaged. Yes. Oh right, yeah. Let's do that now. Okay, what color? Pfft. Gold. Oh wait, change color. Oh, platinum. So let's just go with gold. Maybe or silver. Silver sounds nice though. That looks nice. Done. Hope you have a truly wonderful wedding. Yeah. Hey, we finally got up to the wedding arc. Our wedding. We'll play a bit of this. We'll play a tiny bit of this. Yes. Side by side, on a purple dyed forks leather couch, you sat with your fiancé, Cove. The air in the chic office smelled non-distinctly perfumed, though luckily it was a demure touch rather than smothering. A soft hum came from the air conditioning, gently flowing the scent around the room. It was the first time either of you had been there, and you weren't sure if the atmosphere was meant to comfort or impress visitors. For some people, it wouldn't make a difference either way, like with your own partner, for example. Cove's hands was intently gripping yours. You could feel him trembling and hear the squishing noise of the couch made each time he shifted around. One part came from his usual nervousness over these kinds of matters, and the other came from an almost uncontainable excitement for the same reason. This place was the headquarters of a well-known event planning agency in the area, and this office belonged to their planner for a very particular type of special occasions, weddings. You are here to plan your wedding together, eh? Soon he wouldn't be only your fiance. Cove would be your husbando, and on that occasion there was going to be a ceremony, reception, and everything. This was inevitable, simply the next step in your long life together. Today's meeting should be straightforward, introducing yourself to the planning team, getting familiar with one another, and going over only some basics. The entire process would take multiple visits here and trips to other locations. Before setting up the appointment with the planner, you and Cove decided that you were going to set the wedding inn, or at least near Sunset Bird. You also had a good idea of who would be attending, how large the wedding needed to be, and a few other details related to your lives together going forward. That was as far as you had gotten in the process when you decided to bring in assistants. So here... Cove noticed the dreaminess in your eyes and the corners of his mouth lifted hopefully. His second hand reached over to clasp both yours and his first. A metallic sensation pressed into your skin, and the engagement ring securely on his left ring finger. Your feet shuffled against the black and white striped rug that covered over the center of the hardwood floor as you returned a smile back. Here we are. It's really happening. His fingers squeezed your hand deeper into his hold. You know, I'm not really good with, well, any of this, but I'm sure whatever it brings up being, like, it's gonna be amazing. It has to be, because I'm marrying you. Well, yep, that. He was too sweet sometimes. Yes, I agree. He is way too sweet for me. Bloody hell. And then there was a series of quiet knocks. Your conversation stopped as you shared unsure looks between one another. Come in? In response to Cove's words, the shiny wood door off the side swung open. Hello, lovebirds. Why, hello there. No. Hey, standing in the entryway was a tall man about your age. His dark grey hair. That's grey. That looks brown as heck. His dark grey hair was swept to the side of on his neck, and on his neck was a distinctive mole. His curved grin and brown eyes were wide and sync.
Perfect.
Hey, it's Baxter. Hey. I keep saving. This is perfect. Two neighbors across the street from each other, finding love together. It doesn't get better than that, hmm? Cove stared, while frozen in place, a deer in the headlights. His mouth opened, then closed again soundly. Do you know this person? No, this. The former tourist stepped further into the room while chuckling.
That's wonderful.
I'm flattered you two people of excellence remember me too. And I didn't even have to dress black and white. I didn't even have to dress in black and white. His style choices might have changed, but you realize now the design of the rug might not have been an entirely arbitrary choice. This was an incredible, unexpected reunion. It has been a while, years.
I know.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah, I remember the relationship. These two guys' relationship. Not the best. I think I might have to end it here, sort of. I do have something to show you guys, though. Wait. Hold up. Let me rearrange this, sort of. Let me rearrange this a little bit. Oh, wait. Let me go back to the game. Hold up. Go back to the game. Yes, save here. Go back to the main menu. Quit. Yes. Oh, wait. Oh, shit. Wait, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, well. I wanted to go back to the main menu. Okay. You know what? Never mind. I'll show you the process, the model's process right now. Hold up. Let me find it. It's just buried in my abysmal amount of posts. Oh, let me find it. I think I've gone past it. Why is it media? It should be in tweets and likes and replies. Okay, which should be somewhere. Let me try find it. Let me try find it. Why am I humming? Why am I humming that? Oh, let me find it. It's quite far down. It should be easy enough to find. Oh, there we go. Found it. I found it. Let me just. I found the thingy madoodle. How do I show this again? It should be. Let's go with display capture. There we go. Yeah, there's the model. Let me make this a bit bigger. Yeah, here's the model. Oh wow, that is terribly yeah, here's the model rigged by Parsley. Parsley? Is it pronounced as Parsley? I hope I'm pronouncing Parsley correctly. even despite the fact that English is like my first language. But yeah, rigged by parsley risotto. I drew the model myself, but like parsley is doing the rigging. So yeah, I was gonna do the rigging by myself, but then I could not get my head around Live 2D. I was like, my head does not understand. My brain does not understand this. I'm screw this. I'm asking someone else to rig this for me. So that's basically what happened. So yeah. Anyways, enough of that. Let's just get myself out of the. There we go. That's enough. Okay, that's enough showing my Twitter. Schedule. My schedule for the next week. Grim Dawn. Yes, Grim Dawn. The week after will be a Duolingo stream. Yes, we'll be learning. I'll be continuing on trying to improve my Chinese. My almost non-existent. Well, it's not really non-existent. It's like my very rusty Chinese. Drawing stream. And then drawing stream on the 3rd of April, which is yeah. Looks nice. Can't wait to see it finished. Yeah, same. I can't wait to see it finished too. Yeah. So yeah, I have to wait a bit longer, but yeah. Anyways, thank you for coming to my stream and bye bye. Oh yeah, see you next week and goodbye. Bye bye.